preservation and development here in Sierra Madre. I'm excited to speak with you today and promise to work hard to serve our community. So let me turn it back to you to ask me questions of what's most important to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Each of the, some of the steering committee members have got questions that they're going to ask to each candidate, even at the risk of asking them to repeat things that they've already said. Matt?
Yes. Hi, Robert. Matt Bryant here.
Come here, Matt.
Robert, people often refer to the term overdevelopment. As you know, Preserve Sierra Madre, really our core mission is to prevent overdevelopment. And I just wanted to ask you how you would define overdevelopment in the city of Sierra Madre.
So I think to me, overdevelopment really looks like some of the new housing developments that you see, when you travel away from the city. Houses right on top of each other, using 70, 80, 90% of the land, postage stamp size yards. And so that's something that, I really don't want to see in our city. I think that having some room, having a yard for kids and animals to go explore is important.
Thank you.
Pat?
Okay, I'm thinking about you being on the city council, and my question would be that what do you think is the most important for you to work on at first to preserve our community, and how would you go about the process?
So I laid this out for those of you that heard me last week. I've got really 3 top priorities. It is improve our infrastructure, strengthen our economy, and protect our natural resources. And so improving our infrastructure, really the first thing for me is to fix our water pipes. We have water pipes in the city that have never been replaced in nearly a century. And at the current rate of us replacing them, it'll take us 30 years to complete the project. We need to do it faster than that. Second is strengthen our economy. We've got an incredible downtown. That's what attracts so many people to that area. We need to continue to invest in it, to attract businesses, to make it easy for them to get business license, and to support them during times such as the current pandemic. And then third is protect our natural resources. As you have heard, I'm a strong advocate for renewable energy. I'm also a big advocate for fire protection and protection of wildlife. And so I'll work with other agencies, such as the state and federal agencies, to make sure that we have wildfire protection. There's a huge amount of money that's getting dedicated to that. I'll also work with them to try to figure out the right balance with nature out there, with the animals out there. So how do we protect them and protect us? And then I'm going to be a tireless advocate for renewable energy. I think we've got lots of potential in this city to convert us into a clean and green city.
Yep.
And my question for you is your views about development. And as David said, I know you have touched on this a bit, but could you expand a little bit more about how it will affect Sierra Madre and what you would do about development?
Sure. So first, I think that overall the city has done a good job compared to our neighbors with our building codes. We allow far less to be built on a lot than other folks, and so I think we need to continue to maintain that, and in cases strengthen that. I also think that we really need to have a robust dialogue. Very often a developer comes in and they come in with very attractive and pretty pictures, and then the project happens. And what will happen is that they will go to the code, and they'll go in and they'll interpret directly what the code allows them to do. And I think we need to be really thoughtful and really cautious about when we see that, is understanding what the code allows us to do, because that's really the basis. To me, it's compliance with our laws and regulations is where everything starts. So if that, just as a foundation of a house, if that foundation is strong, then everything else will flow from it. And then what flows from that are the questions and engagement with the community. So it is, how are we involved in, and consulted in that project? How are the studies, what are the outcomes of the studies, and what studies do we have? As I mentioned, noise and traffic. Those are things that are really important to understand the output of. And then, you know, as we have so recently seen, how are they handling fire? You know, my house was threatened in that fire. I was at the very edge of it, but it was still really scary, and I could see it out my back window. And so we need to make sure that any future development, it is as fireproof as we can make it. So that's what I would focus on.
Thank you.
Gary?
Yeah, hi, Robert. Gary Hood here.
Morning, Gary.
At the last city council meeting, the council brought up the fact that as a city, we need to raise more money to support the fire, police, and library. I was wondering, other than raising taxes, what ideas do you have for raising revenue for these critical services?
Well, you know, it is like any budget. You've got to look at what comes in and what you're paying out. And so what I really like to do is do a bottom-up budget and really start with the highest priorities. And you mentioned them, you know, fire, police, and our infrastructure are the first things we have to fund. And then we have to ask, you know, what is it that we can afford after that? The other thing we have to look at is look at things on the long term. You know, we have to be looking at 20, 30, 40 years out and how we can continue to invest and maintain things. And so I think that my approach is to chip away things over time. Raising funds is always really challenging. And I think in the right circumstances, we can do that. But we have to be really thoughtful about it as we go forward. You know, we've got to keep this city as an attractive place, and we've got to balance how much people spend. It's expensive to live in California. So by starting with what is most important to us, starting with a zero budget at the beginning, building it up, figuring out what things we can hold off on, looking at long term, and then when there's a shortfall, figuring out what's the most effective way to go and raise that, whether it is a bond or a parcel tax or how we want to approach that.
Thank you.
Judy, do you have a question for Robert?
I don't at this time.
Okay. Robert, how long were you on the Energy Commission for? And perhaps you'd like to talk in a bit more detail about how you see commissions functioning, what influence they have, and your experience on it.
Certainly. So I have been on the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Commission now for just over a year. So
How long?
1 year.
1 year.
Yes. So I've jumped into this city and have really put my heart and soul into it. I think that the commissions are a critical voice for residents in the city. I think it is our chance to be able to set the direction, set the agenda, and advocate for what's important to us. And so that's why when I joined the Energy Environment Commission, I really worked on two things. One was the solar project to try to get that here in the city. We have an incredible opportunity with that, and hopefully it will come to realization. I mean, it's been approved by the council, and they're starting to prep the land, but you know, it's not done until the switch is flipped. And then I also worked on an Earth Day celebration. So we were going to have a 50th Earth Day celebration on Earth Day, April 20th, and unfortunately, because of COVID, we had to cancel it. But it's these types of things that I think are really important, and I think we need to strengthen that link between the commissions and the council. You know, we have liaisons to all of the councils, to all the commissions, but at least in the Energy, Environment, and Natural Resources Commission, there wasn't as strong a collaboration. And I'd really like to see all of, you know, as a member of the city council, I'd like to see all of our commissions actively engaged, and have the council members actively engaged with those commissions and making them to really, it's an extension of what we can get done. You know, it's the whole idea of many hands make light work.
I've Pat.
Yeah, Robert, what is your view about having only 5 members on the Planning Commission?
That's a really good question, Pat. You know, I would lean towards having 7 members, honestly. I think that it's such an important role that having that additional depth there is important. I think for other commissions, you know, it's been, some commissions, there's been seats open for years. But the Planning Commission, you know, it's been pretty well staffed, at least in the time that I've been here. So I think that I would advocate for it to go back to 7.
Thank you.
I'd just like
David,
to all attendees that they'd like to submit questions by chat. They'll be most welcome. Matt?
Yeah, Robert, you sometimes hear people say that, you know, they have the right to do what they want with their own property. But what happens when that right conflicts with the rights of the neighbors? And I'll give you an example. It's kind of a common example. You have, let's say, 3 one-story homes next to each other. The person in the middle wants to either tear that down and build a 2nd-story home, or they want to add a 2nd-story addition, both of which will impact adversely on the views, the privacy, and the property value of the immediate neighbors. And so my question to you is, what is your philosophy about that inherent conflict?
Well, I think we need to me, it always starts with, what does it say in the codes and regulations? I mean, that's really, that's what we have to base everything on. And we have to think about, okay, so what is the impact of that? And what does that mean for different areas of the city? And what does that mean for different buildings? You know, I think we also have to look at things on a real long term. Is that, how do we keep this city attractive for people while maintaining its character? So it's a really delicate balance. And so I think as a part of the design review process, we need to be thinking about what are the criteria that we can include, so that as people develop, we do it in a smart way that brings the whole community forward and not make it really disjointed.
Thank you.
Robert, you're building your own business as a consultant, which is a hard thing to do, and at the same time you're willing to undertake the responsibilities of being a city councillor. Quite time-consuming. How will you adjust the work-life balance to do that?
Well, so I'm really fortunate, is that I get to set my own hours. You know, and if I don't like my boss, I've got a real problem, you know, because I have to look him in the mirror every morning. So, you know, to me, once I started my own business, it was an incredibly liberating thing, is that it really allowed me to prioritize what's most important. And so, you know, for example, I spent a good portion of yesterday afternoon preparing for today. Now, if I was employed by someone that I had to work for, 40 hours a week, that'd be a little bit of a conflict to do that. But I can do it. You know, I didn't get paid, but you know, that's the choice I made. I'm at my core, I want to give back. It's kind of been in my DNA from the very beginning. And so every day I sit down and look at, what are the things that I have to get done? And how do I prioritize those? And I try to be really careful about what I take on. You know, I listed a whole bunch of things that I'm involved with. And one of the things I have to do, if elected or when elected to city council, is look back at those and say, okay, can I really keep all those things on the plate? And where can I step back? Because I am committed to stepping forward into this role.
Yeah, you're not worried about any conflict of interest between clients you may have in the city and working with the city?
Well, so the great news is that that I don't have any clients in the city. My closest client right now, I've had a client at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, which is in the city, and then I have the LA city as a client. And so I would commit to you here today and to anyone at any point, I won't take on any business with the city while I'm on the council.
Okay. I've received a question through the Q&A function, which means that it doesn't identify who has asked the question. So it's an anonymous attendee who asks, how to balance the impact stroke indifference on a portion stroke neighborhood of city as a result of development and or rezoning with that of the whole city. But I think, just to paraphrase that, it's a question of how you balance what is good for a bit of the city, a portion of the city, versus the impact for the city as a whole. It's a little bit abstract, that question, but if you could make the most of it, that'll show your ability for the city council to deal with questions that might find somewhat difficult.
Sure. Yeah, and it's a great question, and quite honestly, a challenging question. And that's what it's going to come down to as we move forward as a city, is that we need to go back to the city's general plan and look at where we've set that strategic direction for the city, and really rely on it and use that as our North Star. What that means is that sometimes, and to get there, it's that's a long arc. It's a long path. And so along that path, there will be bumps in the road. And so we're going to encounter times when there are conflicts of that. But we've been around for 139 years as a city, and we've successfully done this. And so I will always look at what will the city council, what will city residents think about this 100 years from now? Will they be proud of the decisions that I make and that we make, or will they look at it and go, "Oh my God, that was atrocious"? And so that's the way I'd focus on it. I'd really kind of, I'm in the long view, and that means that some of the short-term things, those are going to be the hard decisions.
But there is this sort of endemic conflict between wanting to get more business in the city, because we know that there are too many empty shop fronts, and more business means you actually want to have a few more residents around in the city. And then we all have this in terrible conflict, because the fewer new houses there are in the city, the more the value of the existing houses goes up. So we have a financial interest in preserving things as they are, in the sense of not having anything new, against what's good for the city over the 100 years. So how can you advocate for the right kind of development without antagonizing all those people whose property values will be affected?
Well, I hate to say this, but I can't. And what I mean by that is you can't make everybody happy. So I can't come here and promise you that everyone's going to be happy with me. I wish I could. And so to me, it goes back to that general plan and working backwards from there and looking at it. The last thing I want, and it would just absolutely crush me, is to see our downtown become a ghost town. I've seen it happen in other cities, and I will fight tirelessly to keep that, because that's what's going to help bring people here. Now, and we're going to need to continue to develop and enhance our housing. And so what does that mean? How can we do it in smart ways? I think, having things like ADUs or accessory dwelling units is a good, smart way of use of our land. I think that's a good way to continue to attract people here with more affordable housing. I think we need to continue to look at our different districts and look at how we can make use of them. One of the areas I'm actually excited about is the light industrial area on Montecito. I think that there are some untapped potential there. And I think there's some opportunity to bring things there that will bring revenue to the city and bring, without bringing a lot of additional impact, and without bringing a lot of additional cost. And so I'm happy to go into more detail of that, but there are lots of things that we can start thinking about and get creative here that can keep the city vibrant as the place people want to come live, without becoming everything becoming multi-story, multiple houses, subdividing lots, all of the things that I think would really impact the character of the city.
We have a few more minutes. Is there anyone else on the steering committee who'd like to ask a question or make a comment? Pat?
I got one, David.
In light of everything that we've asked you, is there anything that we missed that you would like to tell us about serving on the council? What are your priorities? Again, I mean, you did mention them, but is there something we missed?
I think you guys have been incredibly thorough. I'll go back and say that I've really taken a lot of time to think about this. And my three biggest priorities, again, is strengthening that infrastructure, keeping our downtown strong, and protecting our natural resources. And so that's what I've distilled everything down to, and that's what I'm going to focus on.
Great, thank you.
Matt?
Yeah, Robert, as you know, the monastery project is, moving forward. The MOU was agreed to. It is going to be one of the largest development projects in decades. And there's a lot of people very concerned about that. When our organization was originally founded, we were adamantly against a project up there. Now we've taken the position that we're going to have a wait and see approach and see, what the details of the project are going to be. And my question to you is, what aspects of the project will you be scrutinizing in order to make a decision of whether or not you would approve a zoning change from institutional to residential?
Certainly. Well, I've looked closely at the monastery project, and I think what the organizations put forward seems very reasonable right now. They're putting less housing on there than they're allowed. They're creating a turnkey 3-acre park, and they're donating area in the foothills that could be used as trails. To me, I want to continue to watch that and go back to those questions that I laid out. And I want to hear more questions from you and others in the community about what's really important to watch for. Because if we take our eye off of this, then things can happen that that can't be changed. And so we need to be really, really vigilant and thoughtful on how those homes are developed, how that park is developed, how that land behind the monastery is preserved, and how we take into account things like the impacts of fire and the impacts on traffic and noise. So it's, we're at the beginning of the next phase of the project. We've moved forward, and we just need to be really thoughtful about how things develop going forward.
Robert, thank you very much indeed. It's been very good of you to subject yourself to this invigilation, and we're very grateful to you. And we wish you, as we wish all the candidates who are appearing, the very best of luck. But thank you very much for putting yourself forward.
Well, thank you all for your time this morning. And I'll just end with one final thing is, no matter what happens, and I know I don't have to tell you guys this or anyone on it, but I'm going to say it anyway, please vote. Just please get out and vote, and vote as soon as you can. So thank you all very much. You have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, Dave.
So, Dave, could you please unmute yourself? There we are. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you well.
Fine. So, Dave, thank you very much for appearing today. We are asking you to talk about yourself for about 4 or 5 minutes, and then the steering committee will ask questions. And we're encouraging other people who are in the attendees category to use the chat function to ask any questions they may have of the candidate. So, Dave, over to you.
As I've said previously, I've lived in Sierra Madre for 35 plus years. I've always been active in the community. My contributions to the community have been many. I'm a past president of Sierra Madre's Kiwanis Club. I was a reserve police officer in the city of Sierra Madre for 10 years. I've been a commander and a member of the Veterans of Foreign War, Post 3208 in the city of Sierra Madre. During that time, if any of you are familiar with that post, we had a lot of World War II veterans. Our post was literally and slowly dying. And during my time, we went from about 80 members to 240 members.
Can you just hang on for a second, David? We're getting over sort of scrutiny.
I'm doing some, yeah.
I think it may be to do with your headphones.
No,
No,
it
no.
sounded like a bird.
Anyone have any idea where this noise is coming from?
That's from Matt.
They're, I think they're parrots, Matt.
Yeah.
David, can you mute me for a minute?
Okay, I'll mute you for a minute. Maybe your parrots. All right. Sorry, Dave. Sorry about the interruption.
No
I
problem.
want to hear you perfectly.
Good. I have served on a committee for Congresswoman Judy Chu in the collaboration between the Veterans Administration healthcare system to establish a Veterans Healthcare Center for the city and for San Gabriel Valley. It took us approximately 7 years to get a clinic for over 40,000 veterans for the San Gabriel Valley, and the clinic is now located at the corner of Santa Anita and Foothill Boulevard in Arcadia. I have served as Assembly Member Chris Holden's Veteran Advisory Committee. As a longtime citizen of Sierra Madre, I'm very well aware of the issues that are important to the community. I believe a council member's primary responsibility is to listen to their constituents and act on their concerns. Whether it's for my church, St. Rita's, our country, family, or community, my top priority has always been to serve others, and I look forward to representing our great city.
Now, just a bit more about yourself. Are you employed, retired?
I've been self-employed for 30 some odd years. I work for insurance carriers. I do investigations. So basically, I've always worked on a 24-hour clock. And I truly believe that as a council member, you should have the time to do your job. So I see anywhere from 20 to 30 hours, probably 20 hours that you would need to devote as a council member. And I have that luxury, if you will, as I work for myself.
Okay, well, thanks for that that introduction. Matt?
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Sorry about the parrots in my backyard. I've come inside. Dave, I wanted to ask you, you know, a lot of people refer to the term overdevelopment. As you know, Preserve Sierra Madre, I mean, one of our core missions is to prevent overdevelopment in Sierra Madre. I just wanted to ask you how you would define overdevelopment in Sierra Madre.
Overdevelopment to me would be the construction of multi-unit projects in the city. I don't think we really have, other than the monastery, which is one of the current large issues, and it's always been, as well as one Carter, large parcels of land that would be developed. Any development that I've seen is that I can, on my daily walks or runs, I can see a 1920s home next to a 1990, 2019 home. We've been able to blend the new construction, but overdevelopment would be, basically, to answer your question, is multi-unit complexes. However, I do believe that we need affordable housing, and not to confuse that with low-income housing. We've all said, and I've heard a lot of folks say that we'd like to raise our kids here. It's a great city to raise your kids, but unfortunately, once they go through their formative years and go off to college, a lot of them can't return because they can't afford housing. And I think this is one place, and maybe with the monastery, we can start there. I don't know what the development or the cost will be to individual families, but one thing we do need is affordable housing in the city of Sierra Madre.
Well, the monastery development will be expensive houses.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I understand that.
What specifically would you do to help to generate affordable housing?
Well, that's just it. I think either the city or they had a review of some areas within the city that, I think one of them is the parcel lot where the post office is current. You have some vacant property there that you could possibly use that as affordable housing. You have areas in Montecito on the Montecito streets, the West Mariposa Avenue. You have some sites in that location that can be used to use affordable housing.
Okay. Pat?
Okay, my question to you, Dave, is when you get on the city council, what would be your first priority on the issue that you would be working on, and how would you do that?
At first, I thought that in this city, and we don't represent a district, we represent the citizens of Sierra Madre. I would honestly ask the commissions that we have, such as yours, what is on your agenda? I don't really see a council member coming in with an agenda because, number one, you're not going to satisfy all. You're just going to be thinking about a certain few. So I would listen to the citizens. I think one of the issues that we do have, which the council has been addressing, is the water issue, Sierra Madre, the library. Those are issues that have to be addressed. I think as far as for the citizenry, the library is probably more on their minds than the monastery. The monastery is going to be built. I mean, there's no doubt about that. There's so much we can do, but if anyone's attended the several meetings they've had, it's predicated on what they're going to want to do. If they can really, it's institutionalized, and they can do that no matter what we say. So my first priority would be listening to commissions such as yourself as to what your agenda is.
Thank you.
Ed?
One of my questions is, why do you want to be on the city council at this particular time? What made you decide to run this time?
Number one, I was really surprised that when we had 3 seats vacant, one being for 2 years, that we didn't have that much activity. Second, the two most important issues at this point is the library and is the monastery. And I think those two issues are going to be absorbing the city for the next several years. And I'd like to be involved in that.
Gary?
Yeah, hi, Dave. Gary Hood here.
Hi, Gary.
First, I want to compliment you on your work with Judy Chu and what you've done for the veterans. It's so important, and not everybody steps up to the plate to help the veterans like you have. So I thank you for that. The last city council meeting, the council was discussing that they need to raise more money to support the fire, police, and the library. I'm wondering is, other than raising taxes, if you had any ideas for raising revenue for these important city services?
I don't know how much it would raise, but I don't know if any of you ever looked at how our street the cities are swept. Whenever we have on my street, the street sweepers go by. If there's a car parked in front of your home, it doesn't get swept. I was always thinking that if we would set no parking during the sweep times, and if they do park, then you tax them. That's a way of taxing. Bonds are a good deal, but quite frankly, here in Sierra Madre, the only way we've ever been able to do it is, unfortunately, to raise taxes for the homeowners, or you can have a bond issue. And that's the way, that's the route that I would take.
Well, I asked that question. I think everybody is curious to see if anybody comes up with some extraordinary way of raising money without raising the taxes. So thank you for your answer.
We could have a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Judy, do you have a question? To unmute yourself.
Can't hear.
Unmute yourself, Judy. Press the red button. There you go.
Carrying on Gary's question, is there an order to what the city council finds expedient? Is the police department more important than, say, the library? Do we take the library off the table at this point? Because it's something that some people question is affordable. How do you feel about the fire department versus the library versus the police department? Just your thoughts.
I think we answered the call as far as the police department is concerned when we had the proposition of, do we want to have sheriffs in town, or do we want to maintain our police department? As far as the library, I think the issue with the library, I think you can do both, because the library isn't one or the other. They have several propositions that are affordable. The police department, they will always be funded, and I believe that you can do both. But to begin, I would always say that police department is a priority, as well as the fire department.
Thank you.
Dave, are you on any city commissions? I missed that in your
No.
Can you
Just the elite people get on those commissions.
pardon? You know what? Sorry, I missed that. Could you say a word about your view on the role and function of city commissions, and whether you've attended the meetings? And
I've attended some meetings on commissions, but one thing I've always found is that I believe the commissions need to promote themselves more. Just like with any other organization that we have within the city. If you do not promote yourself, people aren't going to know you're around. The only time that the commission, whatever the commission is, surfaces is when there's an important issue on hand. But unfortunately, that's the way people are, that unless that particular commission has something that someone is interested in, people are not going to attend.
Well, perhaps we could get you to expand on that. That's a very, very important point. That,
in other words, like the Preserve Sierra Madre, before the monastery went in with this MOU in the city, and with one card of, what was it, 15 years ago or so, you heard of people just saying, I just want to preserve Sierra Madre, but we really didn't hear what you meant by that. It encompasses a lot of things. Did you want to preserve Sierra Madre that we didn't want any more development? Did you want to preserve Sierra Madre because we didn't want to look like Arcadia with 2 or 3 mini mansions in the area? So it's all encompassed, but I think that the commissions need to not only say what, say what they're doing, but they need to advertise a bit more as to what their positions are.
I think that's a problem in general that the city has. That the fact that it took some time before there was interest in becoming city council. There was a time it seemed as if nobody was stepping forward, and it's partly because I think people are living more and more their internal lives in their houses, with their involved with the schools or religious institutions, and less with the city. And people are spending more and more time on their screens. How does the city engage with them and the commissions? How do people become more informed citizens? Do you have any ideas on how that might take place?
I'll give you an example with the VFW. When I joined, they had, I'm not sure if you're aware, they had their home or building on Montecito. They couldn't keep it, so they had to sell it. We now meet at the Hart House, and we must have had 5 or no more than 5 members attend our monthly meetings. When I joined, I knew that we were literally and figuratively going to lose our post if we did not advertise. And it does cost money, but by advertise, I meant that we would start supporting various functions. We supported 4th of July parade. We donated to that. We support Huck Finn Day. We support the Boy Scouts, the Scouts. So to me, that was advertisement. So we move forward. Since that time, we've had posts in Pasadena. They lost their post, but the members from Pasadena came to us, and now we have Pasadena within our post. We also have Altadena. Just recently, the post in Baldwin Park was going to lose their home because they didn't have active members. So they consolidated with us. So now our post, when I started, we had about 80 some odd members. We now have over 300 members. And I attribute that to the fact that you made people aware that you are here. We still don't have a post here, a building, but we are strong and we are very much engaged. And on this, Gary, I want to say that we lost Bob or Bud Switzer last 2 nights ago.
Oh no!
I don't know if any. Yeah, he passed away Friday. It's a big loss to us.
Big loss.
Yeah. And
So sorry to
he was
hear
one of
that.
Yeah, he was one of the big members that held that's supposed to get it. So he's a great loss to us.
Sorry to hear.
So that's my, I think, advertising to putting yourself in front.
Okay. 2 questions from the attendees. One is to do with street lamps. Would you regard street lamps as overdevelopment?
No.
Okay.
It depends the size and how many occupants.
And the other one is, you talked about the need for low-cost housing and listed some sites.
No, I didn't say low cost. It's affordable. There's difference. If you say low cost, people are going to say you mean low income. It's affordable housing. There's a big difference.
What is the difference?
Well, low income is what it is. Affordable means that it's not necessarily geared to low income. In other words, if you have low income, you're going to have anywhere from I don't know what the average for a family is, 40,000 that they earn a year. You obviously can't afford a home here in Sierra Madre with that type of income. That would be low income housing. Affordable housing would be, right now, the average, I guess, on the rentals.
Where'd you go? Where'd you go?
Pardon me?
It's here, Debbie.
Sorry, just to continue. So I think somebody else is on the telephone.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, affordable housing, rentals right now for a 1 or 2 bedroom home here in Sierra Madre are averaging what, 2,000, 2,400 a month. So that's what I mean about affordable housing.
I think the question involves the idea that any kind of even affordable housing will require subsidy. And so the question is, how would you fund the subsidy necessary to reduce housing from market value to affordable value?
Well, I mean, you already have, I'm sure, subsidies for that. I'm not sure if the city itself has any. But that would be something that would be presented. Let's face it, it would be the owners that would have the say. If you have rental units, we don't have a stagnant rent here. You know, the rental is whatever it absorbs. But I would have to look into that as far as how you would subsidize.
It's a problem facing the whole of California.
Yeah, exactly.
Overall, a huge housing shortage. And that's why the state is getting much more involved in limiting the powers of cities like us to be NIMBYs and to prevent development. So, and
right now we're dictated by the state as far as that's concerned.
Yeah. Okay.
David, I have a question.
Go on.
Yeah, Dave, going back to the monastery project, which will be one of the biggest projects that Sierra Madre has seen in decades. A lot of people are very concerned about that project. The immediate neighbors are concerned about, bad impacts on their views, their privacy, and their property value. I know the neighbors on Sunnyside are concerned about the increased traffic. I mean, they were concerned before about the traffic just coming from the retreat center up there. And now when you add to that over 40 more additional homes and a park, I mean, that street is going to change dramatically. And the city council is going to have to approve a zoning change from institutional to residential in order for that project to go forward. And I just wanted to ask you, what aspects of the project are you going to be scrutinizing in order to determine whether you vote in favor or against that zoning change, and address the concerns of the neighbors as well as the concerns citywide with increased traffic and pollution, all that kind of stuff?
As far as the traffic, if they have 42 homes at that site, they'll have the traffic there. They'll be they have the garages. I don't think you're going to have as much traffic that you anticipate as you have on a Friday when they have their retreat center going up and down Sunnyside. The park itself is not going to, I don't think it'll bring any more traffic, any much more than you now have at Bailey Canyon. I mean, on Saturdays and Sundays, you have quite a lot of traffic there. In fact, you have just as much up on the Turtle Park going up to Mount Wilson. I mean, you speak about traffic. There's a lot of congested traffic there. But I don't really see, if they build the homes, they're going to house their own vehicles, if you will. So you're not going to have that much traffic on the streets. Will the park bring a lot more traffic? It might, but I don't think it's going to bring any more than Bailey Canyon does now. And if you look at Bailey Canyon, when it was first built, they had very few parking spaces within Bailey Canyon. So you see a lot of vehicles parking on Carter, on Grove, in those areas. But I think that's one thing to see. One thing that I'm interested, and this was just recently because of the fires, is that we all are concerned about earthquakes and retrofitting homes and so forth. With the frequency of fires that we are now having, I think it's something that we have to look into with the new homes to make sure that they are really built to sustain fires. As far as the roofs and so forth, the surrounding areas, I know that they're allowing 40 acres behind the monastery that the city will be responsible for. That's going to be a big issue. The park in itself, the developer, my understanding, is they're going to handle that. It's a turnkey park. But to answer your question, as far as parking, that'd be an issue, but I really do not see any more traffic than you really have now, because people living there, they'll be housing their vehicles. So, and if they go up and down, I don't think you're going to see that many. And I just don't see it's going to be that large. I can ask you, as your association, what are your dislikes of the building of 40 homes as opposed to the institution that they can possibly build?
Well, I can answer that question, Dave. I think when our group was founded 7 years ago, we were against the project completely. And now we're taking kind of a wait and see approach. And so I would recommend that you take the same approach, because we don't know the details yet. And if they build, for example, 2-story homes all along the west side, that's going to impact very adversely on the views, the privacy, and the values of the west side homeowners. I think with Sunnyside, again, I remember 3 years ago when the people on Sunnyside were concerned just about the traffic coming up and down from the retreat center. And when you add to that 42 homes, perhaps the possibility of putting ADU units in there too, plus the park, you've got a whole different situation there. So we really want to take a look at the EIR report and see how these various impacts are going to be mitigated before we can make a decision about approving the project. And I think the city council is going to have still a lot of leverage. And I might add too that an institutional use doesn't necessarily scare me away. I'm right on the west side border, and there is a project.
I figured that by the housing.
Yeah, and there is an institutional project. I don't know the details of it yet, but I'm told that would be less dense, less traffic, and less impacts on the neighbors in the city. Now, granted, that is not going to be pursued because the present developer has that MOU that's going to go forward. But I'm just hoping that everybody's going to have a healthy, open mind about the project until we see the details and see how it's going to impact on fellow Sierra Madre residents and the overall community.
What about the park issue, in the front and the land towards the rear?
Yeah, I think the park issue is really, I think that's going to be the Sunnyside neighbors really have to, they're going to have the most impact by that. Living as a west side neighbor, we're going to be impacted by our views, our privacy, and I think the value of our homes too. But the Sunnyside neighbors, they're going to have to contend with the traffic. So that's really something they have to, people have to hear them out, I think, and see what their concerns are. I think the park is kind of a mixed bag in that respect. Some people may like it, some people may not. I really don't know.
Dave, thank you very, very much for agreeing to subject yourself to this invigilation. We much appreciate it. We also salute your willingness to come forward as a potential city council, and wish you, as we're wishing all the candidates we're talking to this morning, the very best of luck. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
We now have Josephina Ryan joining us. So if you could unmute yourself. Josephina, we're going to ask you to talk about yourself for a few minutes, who you are, why you want to become city councillor and that sort of thing. with something more personal, so we get a picture of you as a person. And then we will ask you questions, and we are encouraging the people who are attendees to put in any questions they may have using the chat function. I am in a rental in San Diego, and today is the day they come and do the leaf blowing. So at a certain point, I will mute myself, and if I can't get back on, I will ask Matt to take over. So Josephina, over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. Just confirming that you guys can hear me. Somebody wave.
We can hear you.
Wonderful.
Fancy you.
Okay, so my name is Josephina Riley. Before I tell you about myself, I just want to thank Preserve Sierra Madre. It's because of your time, hard work, and dedication to preserving the mountains, the natural open spaces, water, wildlife, and especially our distinctive character, essentially our way of life in Sierra Madre. I want to acknowledge this because I think it's important to me to value the people of our town, especially the folks that are involved and really take the time from their families and obligations to selflessly give to our city. I'm running for city council because, like you, frankly, I care. And I believe it's important to put my money where my mouth is. I'm a person of action, and I really care about this city, and giving of my time is important for us to continue to enjoy the benefits of living in such a great place. So my goals are very simple. Really, it's to have open dialogue about what needs improvement here and to work on tackling those issues. Something that I can see right now as an issue is that we need to focus on our struggling downtown. I know everybody says this. However, the key is what you can bring to the table to make it happen, okay? I would also like to focus on addressing our parking needs and sustainable transportation, as this ties into bringing more business. I know we talk a lot about water in this town, and the question is not, do we need to fix our water, our infrastructure and whatnot? The question really is how. The funding for the pipes is non-negotiable. It's just a must-have. You know, we have contaminants and whatnot. So I would like to see that project fast-tracked. Another issue we talk about a lot is the library. And the question to me really isn't, do we need to fix up our library? We know we need to do something about it. The real question is, how do we pay for the library? How do we pay for these water fixes? Do we keep upping rates and taxes, or is there another way? We talk a lot about building and development. I know you guys are going to ask me about that in detail more, but just in general, you know, one of the benefits to bring, you know, to development is that it brings in revenue. Now, I don't believe we should limit all development, but aside from one Carter Monastery, which have already been approved to develop, I would like to focus on seeing if we can bring in more revenue sustainably, okay? What I mean is, if our downtown is thriving, do we even need to consider new development in natural open spaces? If you overdevelop, you lose the distinctive charm of your city. So at some point, we have the inevitable question for the sake of preserving Sierra Madre, which is, how do we utilize our downtown to its capacity, maximizing our revenue? I will first and foremost ask the questions without presuming to know the answers. Is it due to rents, taxes, business license, permits? Is it lack of outdoor dining, due to parking? Is it because we don't have an anchor store? Is it lack of marketing? I have many, many ideas on solutions for all of these. However, who I am is to gather as much data as I can so we can have fact-based and data-driven discussion and brainstorm together about solutions that make the most sense for us. My job is to have vision. And I think this is the most crucial element that we need in city council right now: vision and creative problem solving. Okay, so a little about myself now, who you would be voting for, hopefully. I'm a mom and of a lively 3-year-old, okay? I have my hands full with that one. I work as a program manager during the day. Right now, my client is designing and developing components for electric vehicles. And I've been in electric vehicles for the last few years now. It's, you know, kind of a hot topic in the technical world. I studied bioengineering and mechanical engineering as an undergrad and master's. And I've dedicated my entire professional career, almost 20 years, to work on teams to launch meaningful products, or what I consider to be meaningful, ones that I consider to make an impact in this world. Some of the examples of stuff that I've launched is, you know, DNA sequencing technology equipment. This is stuff that's used worldwide around research labs and on genetic analysis. If you have 23andMe, we were the ones that actually designed the equipment to, you know, to be able to do that. I launched Harley-Davidson's first electric motorcycle, the Livewire, and that was really in the efforts to reduce emissions. And I also about 7 years in medical devices, and that really was to aid in the advancement of medicine. As vice president of product, I've led large and small teams to come together and get through creative problem solving to some of our world's complex technical problems in order to get those products launched. As a vice president of sales, business development, and marketing, I actually led and devised marketing campaigns. Now, I understand what it takes to bring in new business, to increase your customer base, and most importantly, how to be agile and pivot a business when things aren't working, and to be able to see the new opportunities and possibilities. For that, being open to feedback is essential. We've seen this out of the most successful companies. If not for the ability to pivot, Amazon would still be selling college textbooks online. I don't know if you remember that, but that's how they started, kind of. So I want to bring this skill set to our city to work with what we currently have, preserving it as much as possible, and bringing in more commerce to our downtown. My mission really is, if I'm elected, I want to see a beautiful and thriving Sierra Madre. So I humbly ask for your vote, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you very much. We have been urged by one of our attendees, Alan Ross, who says it's helpful to me if the same questions are asked of each candidate. Actually, that's what we intended to do. So we have to be observing our own protocol, not exactly. So I will ask our 4 question answers to ask the question that they are designated to ask for each candidate. We'll go back on track. Starting with Matt, and here comes the leaf blower.
I'll ask the same question, Josephine, that I asked the others, and that is that, people often refer to the term overdevelopment, and of course, that's one of the core missions of our coalition, is to prevent overdevelopment. And I just wanted to ask how you define the term overdevelopment, particularly as it applies to our town of Sierra Madre.
Well, the very first thing that comes to mind for me is, what I read in our general plan, and what I truly believe is, the natural open space. Once you touch it, it's gone. Okay, so that's kind of the extreme definition of overdevelopment. Really, my whole mission is really to not touch that at all. Outside of, like what I said, the monastery and the the monastery and One Carter, which, that's before my time. So in terms of what overdevelopment means, it's definitely protecting, or it would be the opposite of protecting our natural open space. And really, overdevelopment is just development outside of our general plan guidelines. Crowding, kind of ugly aesthetic doesn't belong to our city. And also, obviously the unsafe, due to fire and accessibility, things like that.
Thank you.
Pat?
Yeah, you pretty much answered my question in the beginning, but my question was, what was the first thing that would benefit all of Sierra Madre on the issue, and what would you like to see resolved in the first few years of your term on council? But also, I would add that is that, well, go ahead and answer that one. Expand on that.
Okay, sure. As I mentioned kind of in my opening statement, I think we have such a beautiful downtown. It's got so much potential, and I really see that potential. Put on my engineering hat to solve problems, and I can think of all kinds of solutions. Electric chargers to bring in crowds, maybe an anchor store like I don't know, a Lululemon or something that kind of fits with. It has to fit with our, with our city, of course, but something that kind of draws people. Maybe more art galleries, wine bars, things like that. Definitely focus on outdoor dining, especially in this day and age with COVID. So I think really trying to figure out what are the hurdles and obstacles for the existing businesses, but also new businesses, okay? And so, that's priority number 1 for me. And then my second one really is, and it kind of goes hand in hand, and I've actually experienced this firsthand, this is part of the reason why I'm running, is I live near Chantry Flats, and during COVID, and who knows how long this whole thing is going to last, okay, but we had a ton of like crime, trespassing, things like that in a residential neighborhood near there, because it's not really designed to have that kind of traffic, that kind of flow. It's, residential neighborhood. And I feel like Mount Wilson has the same issues. A lot of the trails and the places that we have in Sierra Madre have those kind of issues. So for me, really putting on my, clean energy public transportation hat really resolves several issues. And I think it's very relevant to Preserve Sierra Madre if we can make it successful. Maybe a circulator or microtransit or some kind of hybrid solution that brings in people maybe from outside, like a park and ride, drops them off at the hiking trail, right? And that avoids, maybe parking lots, which nobody wants, of course. But also, you could be very strategic about it and have stops that stop right in front of the juicery, for example. Maybe someone just took a hike and they want to go get some juice, they see it. So being very strategic about increasing our business and increasing our customer base, but also the public transportation and just kind of the implementation would be very key there.
Thank you.
Okay, and my question actually was, which you did begin to answer, why do you want to be on the city council, and particularly why now?
Well, okay, so when we had that issue with our, parking situation, I really took the lead in my neighborhood, and pretty much I gathered all the neighbors in the Santa Anita and, this area. And I really fought with the city on getting, I got a petition signed by all the neighbors, and I really tried to bring awareness to this issue. So I really tried to bring a voice to all the neighbors and really provide some leadership there. And I really found that very fulfilling, number one. Number two, I could see that people had issues with, the way the city was, addressing the problem, things like that. And, kind of gave me sort of an awakening to be that voice, I guess, in a sense. So that was kind of one thing. Additionally, just kind of where I'm at with my life. I've, as I mentioned, I've been working in heavy product development for a long time, just working on products, things like that. But now I'm doing consulting, so I have a little bit more time. I think Robert Parkhurst mentioned the same thing. So I work for an automotive client, or my client is an automotive company. And so I can kind of make my own hours and work my own schedule. So I have some availability, and I wanted to really give back. And then kind of last one is, my daughter's a little bit older now. She's 3, she goes to school. So, like I said, I was really putting on my thinking cap of how I can make a difference. And I think this is a really, strong place to go and to do it.
Thank you.
Yeah, last city council meeting, the council was discussing the fact that we are going to have to raise more money for the police, the fire, and the library. And other than raising taxes, I was wondering what ideas you have for raising revenue for these critical city services.
Yeah. So I'll touch upon just some ideas that I have, but again, I think fundamentally my strategy is to investigate the problem first, because, I think creating a local business group, working with the Chamber of Commerce and really having a good sit down and listing out all the problems that are preventing, business from coming downtown. So some of my ideas involve, an anchor store that fits with our aesthetic and our Sierra Madre feel. Electric charging stations, I think, are great. Outdoor dining, maybe some rooftop lounges if that's possible with the codes. Like I said, bus stops going down from the trail. So looking at incremental improvements that we can make, and then seeing if they work, right? Or maybe doing some trial things to see if they work. Another idea that I had was, maybe increasing our park area and the Kirsten Court area, and maybe having like an area where we can have outdoor music, and it can be provided to the different, outdoor dining areas, so that maybe you pay a premium. So like a concert, right? You get to pick your restaurant, you listen to your live music, and you can pay a premium. So thinking about things outside the box, that's, one of my fortes. but really using the downtown that we have. We don't need to build more houses necessarily. We don't necessarily need to, do these extreme measures. I think we should try to work with what we have currently and seeing what we can make out of it.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to encourage attendees to submit any questions they may have by chat. Josephina, have you attended any of the commission meetings? And I'd like to know your view on the role of city commissions.
Yeah, so I have not been involved in commissions to date. Like I said, I'm just starting to get into, some of the city politics, if you will. I've definitely volunteered. I'm a society, I belong to the Society of Women Engineers, where we mentor young ladies in the sciences, the STEM. I volunteer at Bethany Christian and, Feed the Hungry type stuff. And I've been involved in some volunteering with St. Rita's. So this would be my first experience dealing with commissions. However, as a program manager in my career, I've had to work on many, many teams. And I think, the commissions are sort of the boots on the ground, if you will, right? And so I think there needs to be a strong cross collaboration between the city council and the commissions. And so I think, anything that improves the communication, I know that nowadays is a little bit harder, but, I do it all the time. I manage all of my teams through Microsoft Teams, through Zoom. So having, and the way that I approach, increasing collaboration in, my day-to-day, and I have meetings, with executives, the boots on the ground engineers, all kinds of different folks as stakeholders. And the way that I approach it is adjust to the situation. Okay, so if we have, for example, some hot milestones coming with the monastery, maybe we need to increase our, maybe we need to have daily meetings or what have you. So you really need to be able to be agile and adjust to the specific situation that you're working on. The library, for example, if we're waiting on a report or we're coming up to a key decision, again, you probably want to, increase your level of communication so that everybody can be on the same page and really try to hear all ideas. I think that's very important.
Judy, you have to unmute yourself.
You made the statement that we don't need more houses, and that, I frankly agree with you. However, the state mandates that we do certain things beyond our control, and some of them are a heavy penalty. So you can't really say we don't need more housing when the state says you're going to be fined atrociously if you don't. So do you need to look into that or change your thought on that?
Let me maybe clarify my statement. I was trying to address the question of revenue, and I was, obviously if we build more houses and sell houses, we get income from the property taxes, right? Right now, property taxes are about 60% of our annual revenue. The thing that I was proposing was, or the thing that I was trying to focus on when I said that statement is focusing on really trying to use our downtown to increase more revenue for the city, okay, to pay for, fire, police, etc. As far as housing goes, I'm not against development. I think that we just need to have, as limited as possible and or meeting the state guidelines. Like I said, the monastery and the one Carter, they're going to happen. And I think we need to monitor it very closely. But if we can keep development to maybe existing lots as much as possible and definitely not tap into, or as much as possible, not tap into the natural open space, I think that would be preferred.
Thank you.
Pat?
Building on that, well, what is your view of reducing the number of members on the Planning Commission?
So on that one, I can see both points of view. I think on one hand, small teams can be more efficient, more nimble. On the other, more folks can provide more perspective. So I would have to look at the arguments for or against having more or less folks before I can decide on what I think is appropriate there.
Okay, we have a question from an attendee. Very interesting question. I mean, one of the problems that the city has is communicating with the residents, getting involvement, getting citizen involvement in what's going on in the city. It has this Village Voice newsletter. So the question from the attendee is, how do you see the addition of new technologies being able to increase income and citizen participation?
That's a great question. Well, there's a lot of technology we can use. It's a little wonky right now because of COVID, right? Everything has to be virtual. But we don't necessarily need technology for everything. For example, the park that we're building in, the monastery that's being proposed for the monastery, you could have a socially distant park. Now, I don't know what that means, but that could be defined as we have spaces that have chairs, 6 feet apart already, and people can just go and congregate, meet their friends, and it's already all set up and ready to go. It's some kind of disinfection. I don't know. We'd have to think through it, right? So a lot of ideas there, but yeah, sorry. So what was the original question? I kind of lost my train of thought.
It's a question of whether you can use technology to increase citizen participation and also revenue.
Yeah, no, it was kind of twofold. One was technology, one was communication. So as far as communication, I do think the city could improve there. However, one thing that I've been noticing while I'm campaigning is Sierra Madre, like our folks and our people, actually do a really good job of coming up with their own campaigns. I saw some signs around that said, Sierra Madre strong. Someone came up with that. And why don't we leverage our community to come up with these campaigns for communication, right? And then have the city take it and kind of, use social media, Facebook, kind of door to door, all kinds of maybe some banners and things like that. But really taking the ideas from the residents on different marketing campaigns and what is important to the different residents, I think that's really key. And the other point, the other point that I'm going to make is, the way that marketing's kind of going nowadays with social media and Facebook, people are really responding to stories, like the story. And I think even just kind of, I've been here for 7 years and I'm technically a newcomer, right? But, learning more about the history and really maybe doing some campaigns around that on who we are, where did Sierra Madre come from? How did we get here? Doing some more marketing around that. Because I think, I even saw on our website, trying to do research on my own, a lot of it, hasn't been updated in 5 years or so. So newcomers can't even really get a feel for kind of, the first place they're going to go is the website. So I think there's a lot of little improvements that we can make there to really tell our story, to bring people, to market ourselves, and to leverage our residents, but also, our technology.
Gary, did you have a question?
Yeah, Josephina, you brought up that the property taxes bring in about 60% of the budget of the city. Do you know what the figure is for what the businesses bring into the city?
I believe it's around 3% currently. But I think we could do better, I really do. It may not be a ton, okay? I don't know. We're not going to get to 60% in the first year, but can we get to 5%? Can we get to 10%? That would be great. Who can't do with a little extra, revenue?
Yeah, the town of 11,000 people, it's kind of hard to bring up revenue for businesses without overburdening the city. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I think we have to be pretty cautious and careful with how we do it. Again, implementation. So that's why I kind of brought up the public transportation solutions, because we have to have a means to bring in additional customers that's simple, that's easy, that's effective, and can help, drive that commerce. Maybe just on weekends, for example, or, maybe we have a little more. Maybe we have a little bit more.
Bringing in a Lululemon.
Sorry?
They can hear you.
I don't think so. I think it's muted.
Okay, I think someone's talking.
Yeah,
okay,
Judy.
so sorry, I forget where I was going here, but yeah, so if we can increase our capacity downtown, at least and we have to do the numbers, you know, we have to do the numbers. What will it take to get to 5%? You know, is it going to cause these crazy crowds? Of course, we don't want that either, but I think we can learn to accommodate, you know, crowds and the transportation solutions. I think we can do better.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, David.
Matt, would you like to ask your monastery question?
Yeah. Josephina, the monastery project is going to require a zoning change from institutional use to residential use. And I'm just wondering what aspects of the project would you be scrutinizing in order to decide whether or not you would approve such a zoning change?
So right now, as you guys already know, we're waiting on that environmental impact report. I think we really have to look at all the data, all the facts, and kind of weigh the pros and cons of each. I think that's really important. So from, you know, and compare things apples to apples. So how does it impact the residents, one or the other? How does it impact traffic, one or the other? You know, what kind of revenue is it going to bring, you know, one versus the other? I think we need to have constructive collaboration with, you know, our residents, the residents around the developer as well. And regardless which path we go, you know, we need to monitor the development very carefully. We need to have milestones and check, you know, active checkpoints on, okay, you know, we're going to outline the foundation here, and, you know, just the different milestones of planning and developing. So I don't think I know enough about either option yet. I mean, I know that the residents would bring in quite a bit of revenue, and I know that you know, I think they have a plan for the 42 residents. Institutional, I've seen some of the early plans. I don't think those are still on the list. I think the owners really want to go down the residential path because, you know, they're actually the biggest customer to this, right? They're a retreat center. They want to be there. They're going to be right butted up against, you know, whatever it is that we develop there. So it's definitely in their best interest to do the least impactful type of approach. However, the institutional development is interesting. You know, we don't have, apart from Alverna, we don't really have a comprehensive high school here. I don't know if it'd be big enough for that, but so it's interesting to kind of look at like I said, the pros and cons. I think that's really what we need to decide as a city, as a community, and kind of make sure that we define all the stakeholders in those decisions.
Thank you.
Well, the problem is we don't have any leverage much to force the monastery to investigate the institutional option. They have said very clearly they prefer the residential one.
Yeah.
And so the leverage that we as citizens have to get them to change their mind is quite indirect. We only have a couple of minutes left. Has anybody else got any questions before we ask you to make a sort of final statement? Okay, in a couple of minutes left, is there anything else you'd like to say to us or anything you'd like to ask us?
Sure. No, I prepared a closing statement. Thank you for, you know, asking me those questions. Hopefully I was clear. I just want to clarify that, you know, me stating Lululemon or this or that, those are just ideas. I'm not pitching for that specific thing. I think we need to brainstorm together and come up with those solutions, but, you know, thinking a little bit outside the box and thinking what we may be able to do to bring that, you know, 3% up a little bit. So I just want to ask for your vote and for your support. I'm just here to make a difference. Over the years, I've acquired the skills necessary to run for this position. I have the knowledge of how to run a business successfully and also how they run unsuccessfully. I've led global teams made up of all kinds of folks, so I really know how to work together and achieve consensus, especially on difficult choices. And I know, you know, this monastery one is one. And I will do so as part of the city council. I have drive and energy with loads of ideas on how to think outside the box. Some of my strengths are my ability to connect with people, my leadership skills, strong problem solving, analytical skills, and just being a visionary. I have ideas for our city and for our future. And I think Sierra Madre is a wonderful place, and I know I can help to make it even better.
Josephina, thank you very much indeed for agreeing to be invigilated by us this morning, and thank you very much for agreeing to endure the tribulations of being a candidate for City Council. And we wish you, as we wish every other candidate, the very best of luck. Thank you very much indeed.
Take care. Thanks.
Okay, and now we have Andy Benscombe. Good morning, Andy. I'm David Gordon on the steering committee. I'm moderating this thing. We would like you to talk for a few minutes about yourself, give us an impression of you as a person, as an individual, and then we will ask you questions, many of which we have tried to be consistent in asking all the candidates. So, Andy, over to you. We have you on the show for half an hour.
Great, thank you everyone. Thanks for inviting all the candidates. I think you guys are doing a great service and your due diligence. I see a lot of familiar faces that care about this community and involved in just about everything in the community. So I'm honored to be in front of you guys. My name is Andy Ben-Cosme. I know it's a little hard to pronounce. Think of Bing Crosby is what I say, but Andy Ben-Cosme. I'm obviously a business person in town, a volunteer. I care about the community and the people in it. I've managed the Century 21 Village office in downtown Sierra Madre for the last 17 years. The business has been here 32, so it's well entrenched in the community. And I've made it a part of our business since I've been here to really be involved in Sierra Madre and all of the events and festivals and volunteer, encourage my staff here to volunteer as much as possible. Because, you know, we help people who live here, obviously the residents, as well as people who want to live here. And how better to know the community than to really volunteer and be part of it. So it's something I care about a lot. I've been involved with the Community Services Commission, serving on there for 6 years, where I served with Pat and Deb both for a period of time. It's one of the things I care about is youth activity and the involvement of youth. I have 2 boys, one of which went through K-8 here in the Sierra Madre schools. And the other one started at the community nursery school, but went to a different school after that. So I've always volunteered with them growing up, obviously in Little League, Cub Scouts, that sort of thing got me kind of my roots with youth volunteerism. But I've also been involved here with my wife, Julie, who's she was pretty much a lifelong resident, grew up in Sierra Madre, and we both volunteer together in just about anything possible, anything we're asked, like the 4th of July Committee, Friends of the Library, the Historic Preservation Society, amongst others. My background, educationally, I have a degree in history, which I'm a history nerd, which is why I did that. I have a master's degree in business administration. I was, right out of undergraduate, I was public high school teacher while I went to graduate school. And then I worked for Earthlink here in Pasadena, which was an internet company, and managed their call centers for them. While I was there, I managed 2,000 people, and the budgets, my budget was $90 million. Obviously, in teaching high school, I didn't have a budget, and I had to manage classrooms of teenagers. So I think I have a pretty wide experience financially, as well as managing people and projects. And I think this election is important because we are electing 3 brand new council members. So I think it is important to have someone that understands both the business community and the businesses in town, as well as someone that has been a volunteer and involved in the community aspects of Sierra Madre. So that's one of the reasons I'm running, and I think I would be a good fit. I'll keep that brief, and I'll let you guys ask questions.
Thank you. Matt?
Hey, Andy, Matt Bryant here. Andy, people often use the term overdevelopment. And as you know, Preserve Sierra Madre, that's one of our, core missions is to prevent overdevelopment in Sierra Madre. And I just wanted to ask you how you would define overdevelopment as it pertains to Sierra Madre.
Sure. I mean, overdevelopment, when I use it anyway, I mean anything that's not in keeping with the character and nature of the community. Being in real estate like you are, Matt, I'm sure you understand that when you are showing people homes or trying to find a community that fits for them, that character is important. So someone that wants to live in Sierra Madre probably doesn't want to live in parts of Arcadia or Glendale or places like that. So, so development is anything that would change that character or overdevelopment. In Sierra Madre, I mean, we're a bedroom community of character homes and historic homes. And I think that's primarily what we need to do. Obviously, we do have a little downtown district, but we're not going to have box stores or like Pasadena is doing with the high-end luxury apartments and huge towers they're building just about everywhere. That's not something that's in keeping with Sierra Madre. So I wouldn't support those kind of projects. We do have obviously some apartment buildings, you know, 30 units, 40 units here and there. But, you know, I don't see density as a thing we want to bring to Sierra Madre.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question, Andy, this is Pat Alcorn. And
Pat.
my question is, what is the first thing that you would like to tackle when you get on the city council? What's the most important issue, and how would you go about it?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest issue is going to be the monastery. I don't know if it's going to be the very first one, depending on that timeline, but I think it's important. I mean, the memorandum of understanding the city is undertaken with the monastery project is promising, but I do have concerns, you know, how locked in the terms may be as far as the homes being developed. So right now they have a proposal of 42 homes, which is limited from an R1 zoning that would allow 116 if they rezoned it R1. So my concern would be that in the future, 20 years from now, there might be an opportunity for a homeowner down the road to either, you know, subdivide or lot split, build more density up there because the R1 zoning might allow it. So that's going to be a huge concern. Also, the how the streets are redirected or connected up there to allow traffic flows for the residents that are up there and access to the trails. You know, we don't want to necessarily congest that area, not just because of the new homes, but also the new recreational opportunities. And then what decisions we make as far as that park. I think it's great to have more outdoor space, more green space, and a park that's you know, paid for by the homes up there. But you know, what kind of recreation will we allow there? And then the space above the development, above the monastery that would be donated to the city. How can we protect that, you know, in light of the wildfire situation, and how can we take advantage of that space to maybe help with future fires and prevention? So that's kind of, I don't know if it's going to be the very first one, but that's the one that's on my mind the most that I'd want to jump into.
Thank you.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Deb.
My question is moving backwards a bit, and I know you've touched on this, but if you want to expand a bit, why do you want to be on the city council and why now?
Yeah, you know, like I said, I guess my main impetus to do it now is because we do have the 3 new people coming on. And I know for a few weeks there was kind of touch and go, who was going to run, who wasn't going to run. And, you know, I think it's going to be important because our council now has been very cohesive, has done really great things. But as we know, that can change rather quickly if you get the wrong people in there. And sometimes people might be well-intentioned. I think everyone that's running, I don't know them all personally, but, you know, they're all well-intentioned and I'm sure care about the community like I do. But you have to have that experience and the background in there and kind of been a little bit part of the community and volunteering to understand things and understand how to get things done. So I think that's going to be important. And I think I've added a lot to both businesses and other volunteer organizations, as well as professional organizations that I've been part of, that I think my expertise would be helpful there. And with the monastery project in mind as well, I think it wouldn't hurt to have someone that has a little bit of land use knowledge and real estate knowledge working on behalf of the city. So that's kind of the why now and why me.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Andy. Gary Hood here.
Hi, Gary.
At the last city council meeting, council was discussing the fact that they're going to need to raise more money for the fire and the police and the library. Other than raising taxes, I was wondering what ideas you have for raising some revenue to support these critical city services.
Well, there wasn't, I was listening to the last council meeting, and I actually had a follow-up discussion with the city manager about it because I heard that comment about public safety. So there's no necessarily a plan or a concern right now that they would need to do that, but maybe in the future, you know, we never know what happens. But that, of course, is our #1 concern. So I think everything else comes secondary to public safety. So whatever cuts, whether it's staffing at the city or reduction of some programs, you know, that we would have to offset, priorities are #1. For the library, that's a different story. You know, we have a foundation and the Friends and different library groups that are looking at potentially putting a ballot measure up and a parcel tax, which, you know, right now they're thinking about a $17 million building. You know, I'm definitely a supporter of the library, and we have our ADA issues, the roof, the electrical. We have issues we have to address there. I don't think we necessarily need to go to 17 million. That would be funded obviously by a parcel tax if the voters approve that. The city would have the discretion, of course, and the next council, if they did that, to decide how much of that to spend, if any. I think there's a happy medium there somewhere. Kind of ties into that overdevelopment question. Do we need a 2-story glass palace on the boulevard? Or do we need something a little more scaled back, a little more outdoor use, especially in these times that I suspect we might have again in the future. So I think, yeah, library will probably be funded by an initiative or fundraising. Public safety would be from, I don't think there's an immediate concern for the funding for that, but I think down the road, if we do have an issue, it's prioritization and, you know, taking your red pen out to that budget and seeing where we can cut.
To add more information and why the city council was mentioning they needed more money to fund the fire, police, and library, I brought it to the council's attention. We only have one firefighter on the engine company. This is a very unsafe situation to have only one firefighter there. And so I brought it to the attention of the city that they really need to have 2 firefighters on the engine company. So that's actually where this council was coming from, recognizing they do need to hire more people on the fire department.
Okay, I'll have to dig into that one then, Gary. I'll put that on my list.
I'd like to explain that another member of the steering committee has just been able to join the meeting. So there'll be some questions that have not been asked to other candidates. But Anne, did you have a question?
Yes, Andy, hi. I'm Ann
Hi.
Chesterman, hi. The last time you campaigned, you, I believe, started your kickoff with the Arcadia Real Estate Commission and had signs in Arcadia. Is that correct, and why?
No, it's not correct. There was a lot of disinformation in that last campaign. And, you know, I'm a positive person for the most part. I don't want to negatively speak about anyone or, you know, any, you know, I wanted to stick to the issues and why I wanted to run. In fact, my first campaign kickoff was on Adams Street at the house of Robin Patterson, sorry. And that event at the Arcadia, it's a trade association. It's not a commission, but that association encompasses Sierra Madre. So it's a regional, it's not the Arcadia Realtors. It's Sierra Madre, Monrovia, Duarte, Bradbury, and Arcadia. And that was an event they put on for me. They had offered to donate money to my campaign at that time. And I asked that they not donate, and instead, if they wanted to host a fundraiser for local realtors, that they could do that. And that's what that was. And as far as signs in Arcadia, I had one sign from a friend who I know for a long time, and he's on Arbolada and Orange Grove, which a lot of us drive in that way. And he asked me, I'm sorry, Arbolada and Foothill. He asked me if he could have one of my signs, and I said, "Why would you want one of my signs?" And he said, "I don't know. People drive in that way. Can I have?" I said, "I guess so." They'll confuse it. The Arcadia City Council, I believe, had an election at the same time. I said they'll get confused, but that's why it was there. Yeah.
Thank you. We've got helicopters going overhead.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
it is.
That's what, yeah.
Andy, a question from one of the attendees. Do you foresee any conflicts with potential developments and your role in the real estate business?
Absolutely not. I mean, if anything, it's a negative for me. I mean, first of all, I'm primarily a manager and I manage the office here. Secondly, I'm not a developer. I've never represented a developer. That's not my scope of business. I help, the average person buy and sell homes. And if I were on the council, any real estate transaction or business of the city, I would have to recuse myself. So if anything, it would be a negative. If Gabe wanted to buy a house in Sierra Madre, I wouldn't be able to represent him. So I don't think there's any potential conflict there. And I, of course, would recuse myself from any even appearance of that. But I do think my expertise would add to the council and help the city. So I'd be working in my professional scope for free for the city.
Thanks. Andy, you've had considerable experience on city commissions. Could you talk about your experience there, whether they have much impact, how that impact could be improved, what your view is the number of people who should be on commissions? Give us a flavor of your experience of city life through the commissions, please.
Yeah. I've loved serving on the Community Services Commission. Prior to that, when I lived in Monrovia, I served on their library board as well. I think it's a vital and important part of getting, feedback and communication to residents. I do wish we have had a bigger commission. I was opposed to the reduction from 7 to 5. I understand that there are issues sometimes getting enough people qualified or that have the desire to get involved. But I think it's important. I think it's important that we hear from the residents. David, I know I've seen you before the Community Service Commission many times. And Pat is I think still part of the commission as much as she's there. But that's important that we hear. Right now there's 5. We can't know everything going on in town, and we can't know every perspective. When there was issues with the field use, we had one meeting and it was all the local residents, and it was very one-sided, kind of opinion. Then we had a follow-up, and then we heard from all the Little League parents, and that was a whole different side. So it's important to get that flavor and that mix. Where I have been disappointed, however, with the commissions, and maybe it's not the commissions as much as it's the city council, I felt that the council, we have a liaison to the commission, and they'll attend the meetings and hopefully give us some direction on the thoughts of the council, and then represent those that feedback they get from us back to the council. And I found that the attendance by the council members to the city commission wasn't that great for the most part. And we're not televised, so there was no way that they could know other than our minutes. And I think you lose something if you're just looking at minutes. And frankly, at council meetings, I don't hear a lot of discussion about what's going on the commissions, unless it's an issue that's a hot issue. So I think if I served on council, I think I would take a more active role in whatever commission I was representative of, and have that two-way communication to the commission, so they're kind of have an idea of what things the council wants them to be looking at, and then take back to the council the other information that's coming from the commission and the residents and feedback. So in the decision-making process, it helps. And one of the things that, in shrinking it, one of the rules they had in effect was that you had to have a certain amount of applications before you could even consider someone for the commission. I think that's a mistake. I think there should be a better system in place. And, you know, if it were up to me, however many people wanted to be part of it, great. You know, if they had some background or desire and ability, I would welcome that.
There's a question from an attendee. The addition of 40 homes will eventually require another police patrol expense plus fire department as well as park maintenance. Can you tell me how you will face this expense?
Yeah, the park maintenance part is easy. That one is going to be basically a parcel tax or some other mechanism paid by those 42 homes. So the agreement as it stands right now is that that park will be self-sustaining by the new development. Yes, we do need, and we will need, and that's a question I asked the city manager, another public safety officer, and you know, we will gain some additional property tax revenue from the homes. I don't know if that'll completely cover it, but I think we were in need of a partial police officer anyway when you look at the numbers and the patrol. So it's something I do think will be needed, but I don't think it's going to be a huge blow to the budget versus the additional income that we get from property taxes. And, you know, there'll be a little bit in sales tax, I'm sure, because those residents will use some of the local businesses, but I don't think it's going to be a big financial issue.
Matt, your monastery question?
Yeah. Andy, as you know, the monastery project as proposed is going to require a zoning change from institutional to residential. And I just wanted to find out what aspects of the project are you going to be scrutinizing to decide whether or not you want to approve that zoning change?
Well, definitely the institutional zoning is an issue. I mean, I don't think the fathers, the Passionist fathers, want an institution because they're going to be, you know, having their retreats, and I'm sure they want quiet. I don't think they want a high school or anything else like that. So I'm definitely in support of not having it zoned institutional. But it's a good question on if we switch it to R1, which would allow 116 homes. And like I said at the beginning, my big concern is going to be when and if we rezone that property, how do we limit the future development of it? So right now we're saying 42, that's fine. But what stops, you know, 20, 30 years from now, those 116 homes being built because it is zoned R1? That would be my biggest concern with the change in zoning. And it could be a CC&R issue, you know, that goes on all those homes or that development, or the way we set up the streets that wouldn't allow the lots to be, you know, a certain size that could be further developed in the future. Those are the issues that I really want to get down into the weeds on and see what agreements, what development agreements we can form with the retreat center to make sure that that number doesn't grow over time.
Thank you.
Sure.
And what is the leverage that we have over this?
The leverage, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You had another part to that question.
Go ahead. What is the leverage that we have over it?
The leverage, like in most cases, is money, right? They need money, and they need it for their, you know, their ongoing use of the facility and the retirement of their fathers. So they, you know, that's an easy source of income from them in their minds. The second part of the leverage is they don't really want institutional use, is my feeling. I don't think that's what they want to do. So they really want a residential development project. And I think, you know, they've already agreed on the MOU to the park and the hillside and the limit to the 42 homes. So they're doing things that take away some of that income, but it's still sufficient to meet their needs. So I think we could still work on that. That's kind of the first offer. We could still work on that and use just the ability for them to do something up there in the residential nature as the leverage we need.
Yes, the problem is that if we want to explore the institutional option, we don't have the ability to oblige the passionist fathers to look into it. So it remains a sort of question out there. What would an institutional development look like, which we can't compare to the housing development because there's been no work done on what the institutional development might look like.
I believe they looked at it a little bit. I saw two conceptual drawings, one of a high school and one of a retirement center. I don't know how far down that hole they went to, but I think they did look at those two at least. Bless you.
Okay. Anybody else on the steering committee have any questions? Well, Pat, sorry.
Well, I was just going to ask Andy if there is something that you would like to tell us that that we haven't asked you.
Well, I think Preserve, you guys were instrumental in, I think, getting the fathers to this point. I really think had it not been for the public outcry and opposition to a big development up there, I don't think they would be coming to the table with some of these concessions. So I appreciate that. But I guess I want to ask you, that's kind of been the big focus in my mind for Preserve and the impetus for it. What's kind of on your radar? What do you as a group want to really do ongoing with the city?
Well, I think I could answer part of that is that we haven't been concentrating on the monastery before they lifted the water restrictions. So we've been looking overall at the development. We monitor the Planning Commission every meeting, and we would just like to see that we have some reasonable development or reconstruction in the city. That's our whole basis. We're not anti-development at all. We just want to make responsible development for the city.
I think that's a great goal.
Yeah.
We have just a few minutes left, Andy. If you'd like to make the concluding remarks.
Okay.
Sure. I saw Anne raised her hand.
Hi, just quick comment. Given that I've been a renter all my life, I'd like to put it this way. I would like to see the quality of life in Sierra Madre preserved over the issue of property values.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I mean, if we can't afford to, I have two kids, 19 and 20-year-old. I don't know if they can afford Sierra Madre in the future. I hope, they can, but that's definitely an issue. Where my office is, it might be the cheapest rentals above it because it was an old hotel, and they rent for about $850 a month.
Yeah.
For a small old hotel room. It's outrageous. But,
I'm renting a room now for twice as much as what I rented a house 35 years ago here in Sierra Madre.
Yeah.
So that's what we live with.
Yeah. It's a good and bad. Everyone wants to be here and we have a limited supply, so it raises those prices. I mean, all of California is going through that, but it's a blessing, but it's also a curse.
Sure.
Yeah. Well
Thank you.
said. Sure.
Could I just ask Deb, I don't see as an attendee our next victim, Tracy Verhoeven. Could you possibly call her up? Make sure she's
Yeah, no, she's having trouble getting on. I'm going to get off and see if I can give her the link to get on. And thank you, Andy, and then I'll come right back.
Thanks, Deb. All right, good seeing you.
So Andy, if you would like to make some concluding remarks,
Yeah, I'll keep it really brief because I know we're bumping up against it. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys. I think it's a good service for the community, like I said at my opening, that you guys put this on and allow everyone to participate and view it, and the questions you asked ahead of time. I wish more groups in the community did that, not just because it's a platform for the candidates to speak, but so all the residents can really understand who each of us are and what they like and what they don't like. Like I said, I think everyone cares about the community, but what's the background that's needed on the council is a hard decision. And with the general election being at the same time, it's going to be kind of hard to get the message out. So the more we can do to inform the community, the better. So I really appreciate it. If I do get on council, I'll look to you guys as partners, and I would always be available to speak to you or to hear from you. You know, even if I didn't want that, you would still do that. But I really appreciate everything you do for the community, and I hope to serve you either on council or in other forums in the future.
Well,
Thanks,
Andrew,
Andy.
thanks so much for agreeing to be invigilated by us this morning.
I'll look that one up, David.
And thank you so much for putting yourself forward for a political campaign in these difficult times. And as we're wishing all our candidates, we wish you success in your run. And thank you very much once again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Good seeing you all. Bye-bye.
We have a slight hiatus in that we're waiting for Tracy Verhoeven to join us, and so far she hasn't been able to, and Deb is doing her best to aid the process.
I have a question. At the bottom of the screen, I see that we have 7 people on chat, and then we have 11 questions and answers. Those are people that are sending in questions, or what is that?
The Q&A are people who have sent in questions, which I have then used to ask them. Mostly they are sent them anonymously, so I don't know who they are. And so that's where those come from.
While we're waiting, I just wanted to mention that the helicopters are again pumping water out of our settling basin right now.
They're very busy.
Yep.
Is the fire flaring up again or something?
I have no clue because I've been on here, haven't been able to check, but.
MacBook Pro. I wonder if MacBook Pro is Tracy. Let me try and see whether the MacBook Pro is Tracy. Hello to panelist. So MacBook Pro, are you Tracy?
Matt,
Yeah,
can I ask you a question really quick?
sure.
If I can't sell my house, if I can't refuse to sell my house to some ethnicity, Black, Asian, whatever it is, how does the monastery get away with refusing to sell property to an institution?
Well,
can I just interrupt to say, is MacBook Pro, are you Tracy Verhoeven?
Yes, that is me. Hello, David. Nice to meet you.
Very nice to meet you. So I'm David Gordon. I'm moderating this session, member of the steering committee.
On and off.
Well, I was here the whole time. I'm like, I'm here, but I'm glad to finally be on to see all of you.
Okay, well, you were aware you're using your incognito MacBook Pro. That's the only name that we saw. Could I to say that we're going to ask you to talk for a few minutes about yourself, give a picture of yourself as an individual, and then we on the steering committee are going to ask questions, and I will be forwarding to you some questions that are submitted by chat or on the Q&A function. So, Tracy, who are you?
Who am I? Is that what you just asked, David?
Yes.
Hi, okay. Hi, I'm Tracy Verhoeven. And, you know, I apologize for those who have heard this story before, but I just want to tell you that ever since I was a kid, I knew I wanted to run for office. My mom said I came out of the womb wanting to make the world a better place, but it wasn't until I moved to Sierra Madre I knew that this was the place that I wanted to be of service. I fell in love with Sierra Madre and its small town charm, the sense of community, and actually my motto is preserve and prosper because I want it to stay that way. But yet I want our mom and pop shops to be successful. My career path has taught me the importance of communication and to become solution oriented. I'm pretty well rounded as I have been in the corporate world as well as having a small business. As a kid, we had a donut shop, which was a lot of work, Us kids were pretty popular because everybody wanted the donuts, but it was a lot of work. So I learned right then and there that having your own business, that kind of thing. We used to have a family rock and roll pizza right here in North Hollywood. One of my proudest achievements has been a political organizer in 2004 for various small towns in Wisconsin. I gotta quit saying, I have a BA from Northridge, and I'm a licensed real estate agent. I'm active in several communities and several community professional groups. When I moved here, I noticed that the Civic Club, I swear the town did not run without the Civic Club with all these events and all that kind of thing. So I wanted to join. I'm actually the vice chair of archives because I love history and I love Sierra Madre history. It is so fun, especially I went to the Pioneer Seminary a year ago when they did the like ghostly thing of the people who lived there. It was fascinating. I'm also on the Optimist Professionals group, which helps foster children at the Optimist Home on Figueroa and the Pacific Lodge in Woodland Hills. My son is at Sierra Madre Community Nursery School. My mom loved her senior center at the Hart House before COVID. I'm sure she misses it. Just getting out of the house, she would like to, do. Being on the city of Sierra Madre City Council, actually being on the City Council of Sierra Madre, it would be a labor of love for me. This town has given me and my family so much, and I'm so appreciative. When I was little, my father was killed in the line of duty, and that taught me a lot of things. It taught me life is short. Get out there and do what you want to do, and make sure you tell everyone you love, make sure you tell them that you love them. It also taught me sacrifice and service. And that's what being on the Sierra Madre City Council would be such an honor for me, because I definitely want to be of service. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you very much. Matt, would like to kick off the questions.
Hi, Tracy. Matt Bryant here.
Hi, Matt. I haven't met you, but nice to meet you. I've heard a lot of good things about you.
Nice to meet you, Tracy. Thank you. Tracy, people often use the term overdevelopment. As you can imagine, the Preserve Sierra Madre Coalition's probably one of our core missions is to prevent overdevelopment. And my question to you is, how would you define the term overdevelopment, particularly as it applies to Sierra Madre?
Well, definitely McMansions. I can't stand them. Personally, I just cannot stand them. I moved to Sierra Madre because of the charm of the small town. I mean, here we live just a little bit from downtown, yet we seem worlds away here. So McMansions, they're out. Overdevelopment, we don't want to be Arcadia with all the houses up on the hill. At least I don't. So I think that's what I would think that would be overdevelopment.
Thank you.
Pat?
Hi, Tracy. Am I on now?
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Okay. What is the first thing, when you get on the council, what would be the first issue that you would like to tackle for the betterment of the city? And how would you do that?
Ooh, I like that question because it's kind of twofold. I want to talk about the monastery in regards to Preserve Sierra Madre, but also I want to talk about our wildfire situation and getting that in control. If we're going to be having these issues every year, that's not going to be good for anybody. I think that in regards to the monastery, though, it's about communication with me. I would make sure that the residents know what's happening with the monastery at all times. If not, weekly emails, at least a monthly seminar. Now, we all know that we wish we could keep it the same. As I mentioned before, actually one of the fun things I do when I have family and friends from out of town, I used to drive them through the monastery and we'd see deer. I mean, it's so beautiful. Do I want it developed? No, but it's not my business. They can do what they want. So what we need to do is to make sure we have open communication between us, the city, the residents, and the pastors to make sure that they listen to us, and they incorporate our small town charm still. It is zoned for institutions, which personally I think would be awful. If they are going to do a low density development, that's fine, as long as we don't have cookie cutter homes. Again, it's about communication and talking about that. I also appreciate the park. I know some people aren't sure about the park. I would rather have a park than more houses, personally. I mean, that's my personal thought on it. The hillside behind the monastery is a big deal to me. I do not want to see it like Arcadia with these big homes in the back. So I think probably one of the first things I would do, because the time is now about that, is to really communicate with De La Rosa and make sure that all of us residents are being listened to.
Oh, hi, Tracy.
Hi, Deb.
Why are you running for the city council? What made you decide to run, and why now in particular?
Well, there's a couple of different things. I always want to be of service. Sierra Madre is my love. I want to be of service. Interesting. Why now? I think with all the things that are going on in the world, we really need people with good hearts in there, people who know what to do and good hearts as well. We all want the same thing in life. We want to be happy, life, liberty, and happiness. We all want affordable health care. We all want clean air, clean water. I know that has nothing to do really with Sierra Madre, but you're asking me why I want to run. I want to be of service. I want to make the world a better place. I know that sounds cliche, but it's the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary?
Hi, Tracy. Gary Hood here. Good to see you.
Gary.
So at the last city council meeting, the council brought up the fact that we need to raise more money to support the fire, the police, and the library. I was wondering what your thoughts are for raising more revenue for these crucial services without raising the taxes. Do you have any ideas in those areas?
Well, the bad news of developing De La Rosa, is that we don't really want it developed. We want everything to stay the same, at least I do. But the good side is at least we would be getting property taxes from those homes. As of, well, okay, let's talk about Prop 15. Prop 15 would bring revenue to the fire department and the school and certain services like that. Now, to be honest, if I was in Sacramento and doing the bill myself or working with people within the bill, I would have put the threshold 5 million, not 3 million. We live in Southern California. 3 million does not go very far nowadays. And I don't want one small business hurt. But I wasn't there. So in regards to Prop 15, I do think that we need to stand behind it so we can get that extra revenue. Because look what's happening with our wildfires. We need all the equipment we need all the help that those firefighters need. So we need to be completely ready to go and have money for them.
Okay, we have a question from an attendee, which I would have liked to have been able to ask to all the participants, but it's just appeared, from Alan Rolls. Have you heard that it continues to be an issue that people who are not white do not always feel comfortable in Sierra Madre? What do you see the role of the City Council in promoting racial diversity and racial acceptance in Sierra Madre?
Wow, what a fantastic question.
Yeah.
You know, being on Facebook, there was a gal who mentioned that her sons get a lot of flack for being half Asian. And I was actually shocked. I think because I've always been, I grew up in a community that was very diverse. I literally never saw inequality, but that's actually my white privilege speaking. I didn't see it. That didn't mean that they didn't have those kind of issues. In regards to what we can do, I think we just need to, wow, that's a good question. I don't want to make a big deal of it either, because then that's kind of a, like, what am I trying to say? I think what we should do is be able to be just open to everyone who welcome everyone with open arms. We all have the same blood. I mean, you know, we all have the same color blood, and that's all that matters is our heart. And that's a good question. I'd have to really think about that. But for the most part, I think what we need to do is just believe in, oh gosh, you kind of stunned me on that one. You know what? I did speak to that gal about that on Facebook, and I said, you know what we need then maybe are some kind of seminars, like racially sensitive seminars to kind of bring us all together, because really that's what it's all about. We're all the same. We're all here to, you know, enjoy our lives and to be happy and to enjoy our families and then that kind of thing. So maybe some kind of seminar that would speak to that about racial sensitive, you know, situations.
Okay, I have a question here. Have you read the Sierra Madre General Plan?
I have, actually. I have. I won't be able to tell you, you know, verbatim what it said, but I have. And I think that's probably a good starting point for any kind of, you know, review that we, you know, if we need to, you know, the Planning Commission needs to adhere to that. Yes, I have read it.
Do you feel this development is applicable to what the general plan states?
If it's case by case, then I think what it has to be, first of all, we can't have cookie cutter. That will not go with the general plan. We have to think of you know, floor to area ratio. We have to think of height restrictions, that kind of thing. As long as the development stays within those guidelines, I think we're okay. Is it optimum? No. Like I said, it'd be great not to have that developed. But at least if they adhere to what the general plan says, I think we're okay with that. Also, communication. I know I keep talking about communication, but that's what it is. You can get, you know, that old saying, you can get more with bees with honey than vinegar. Keeping communication open is a really big deal. People will really listen, and you'll get along so much better, and you'll get what you need if that's the case.
Tracy, have you served on any city commissions? Do you have any view about their role and importance and how they function?
They're extremely important. I actually wanted to be on ENER and the Community Services Commission. I applied, but that was during the time when they decided, City Council decided to bring it from 7 down to 5. I was really disappointed because I actually wanted to do both of them. I would love to be on the Planning Commission as well, but to me that would be very much a learning curve. I'm not an architect, but then again, you know, this whole thing has been a learning curve. Every single day I've learned something in this whole situation of running for office. It's been such a, you know, blessing. It really has been. But the commissions are very, very important. And that's why I think that we should bring them back to 7 people rather than 5. We need all voices heard, not just a few.
Fine. But you've not been on any commissions in the past. You haven't been able to get onto any. of them?
No, I've been here for a few years, but I just tried to get on the commission a few months ago.
Have you attended any of the commission
Oh, absolutely.
meetings?
Absolutely. I find it fascinating. That's what I said. I'm all about learning things. I love it. I just love learning. I've been there, and I've actually listened to them on Zoom, or watch them on Zoom rather.
Right. Okay. Matt, would you like to ask the monastery question?
Tracy answered a lot of the questions pretty effectively. But Tracy, maybe you just can revisit that issue about the zoning change. We know that's going to be required with the proposed residential project. And I just want to ask you what specific aspects of the project, you're going to be scrutinizing in order to make up your mind about whether you want to approve or not that zoning change. And also, what can you say about the concerns of the neighbors who are most impacted by the project? Did we lose Tracy?
Yeah.
She disappeared.
Was it something I said?
Oh, Tracy, where are you?
I think I've done something wrong. I think I've made a mistake. Where has she gone to? She's MacBook Pro. There we go. I'm terribly sorry. I'm terribly sorry. I pressed the wrong button. I'm new to this. It's my first Zoom webinar.
It's okay.
Please carry on.
Oh,
she's muted.
Tracy, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I already answered the question. Oh boy, this whole thing has been a learning curve for everyone, hasn't it? This whole Zoom thing. What would I say to that? Again, it's about communication. All the neighbors we need to have a seminar or something every single month, keeping everyone abreast of the situation. We need to have them listen to the neighbors. We really do. I mean, that's what it's all about, is we've moved here to have the peace, the quiet, the beauty. We want to keep it that way. But again, like I said, I know I've said communication is the key to everything, but I swear it's true.
It is. And thank you very much, because I like to ask every election candidate, please have a newsletter so we can know what's going on. I'm sorry, we're busy, but if you reach out and communicate, it makes a big difference.
Oh, I appreciate that. I do have my website, and I do have a Facebook website as well. But yes, you're right. A newsletter is important.
It would be wonderful.
Pat?
Tracy, is there anything that you would like to have us know that we haven't covered in our questions?
Oh boy. I think you guys did such a great job of touching upon all the issues. I just appreciate your group so much. When I first moved here, I'm like, what's Preserve Sierra Madre? That sounds like something I would be into. I would see your signs everywhere. I think you touch upon it. It's just that I would do my best to do good by you, frankly.
Any other issues in the city that that you'd like to address before if you're on the council, what specific issues that you'd like to address?
Well, let's talk about the wildfires. I love the idea that we are actually working on a solar farm right now. I think that's amazing. That's going to take out, I think, 800 tons of CO2. That's going to help our area. We want to keep our houses safe. So I think that's very important. Okay, so that also the trees. We've been spending $76,000 a year on, you know, cleaning up the trees. We haven't planted a lot because of the drought. A lot of them had been, you know, we had to clean them up. So this year we're actually planting more trees. So I think that's really exciting. We just got to keep our environment healthy so that we can all be healthy and our houses can stay healthy. This has been a scary time for everyone.
Fine. Tracy, do you have any last words for us?
Well, just that my website is Tracy, and make sure T-R-A-C-E-Y, people drop the E, it's tracyforcitycouncil.com. Please email me with any questions. My phone number is on there. I will answer the phone. Yeah, no, I appreciate this time with you guys. I really do. I respect everything you guys do.
Good. Well, thank you very, very much for attending. Thank you very much for putting yourself forward in the slings and arrows of a political campaign. And as we have done for every candidate, we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you.
And I now declare a 4-minute break until 11.
Good. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
Okay, break time.
Judy, you know any update on the fire? Is it still expanding? Huh. Let's see. 44.
You didn't hear anything I said, huh, Annie?
Oh, no.
Oh, I don't see any plumes, and I haven't heard any helicopters. I did, oh, maybe 5-10 minutes ago, but not now.
Yeah, no.
Well, there are some plumes to the west.
Are there?
Yeah.
You seen the fire?
Because that would be Mount Wilson.
Yeah.
Thanks, find Edward Garcia is there, panelist.
Oh, here. Oh, good.
The panelist.
Good morning.
There he is.
Hi.
Ed, can you hear us?
I can, yes.
And we can see you. And we are on a slight break, so we're going to have a minute to recover our strength.
You guys have been going at it since 9, right?
We have a full representation this morning, so we allowed ourselves a 4-minute break. So we've got another minute, so we don't get our full complement.
Sounds like my teaching schedule. I go basically straight through for 3 hours on Zoom, and then I have an hour of office hours, and we have an exam on Monday, so office hours were an hour and a half. So that was a long Zoom session, that's for sure.
It's this is the first time I've done a Zoom webinar, and I have to say the technology is very efficient. It does allow you to bring people on and change their status, and allows attendees to ask questions. It's really very effective indeed. I've only managed to cut off one candidate by mistake so far.
You're involved with the Playhouse, is that correct?
I am the president of the Playhouse. Yes, that's a different role that I have. I try to keep the two separate.
Thank you for that.
No, I was thinking whether I could use the opportunity to do some fundraising during these calls, but I decided it wasn't appropriate.
Well, you've done a good job of getting the word out about lighting the lights.
Good.
And I plan to contribute to that. That's a good project there.
Thanks, got my vote.
No quid pro quos, okay?
It's 11:30 and we're very, very keen on keeping to time. So we would like you to spend a few minutes giving a picture of yourself as a person so we get a feel for what you're like before we start probing you with our questions. We have a half an hour. Thank you very much for agreeing to participate. Over to you. Who is Ed Garcia?
I am a father and a husband. I have 3 children. The oldest is age 12. The youngest is age 5. She just started kindergarten. My middle is 10. They both, the 10-year-old and 5-year-old attend Sierra Madre Elementary School. And the 12-year-old attends Sierra Madre Middle School. I've lived here in Sierra Madre for 18 years. I grew up in Arcadia. I married into a family that has been here for generations. So my children are 4th generation Sierra Madreans. And the great thing is they get how special this place is. I have my 10-year-old and 12-year-old saying, Dad, we live in the best place. And I don't remember when I grew up in Arcadia ever saying that. I enjoyed my time as a youth, but I don't remember thinking I lived in the best place ever. So that is something that we're very grateful for, where we live. And I was fortunate enough to marry into a family that had a history here. I earned a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Southern California Marshall School of Business in Business Administration with an emphasis on corporate finance. Fight on, Pat. I earned a Master of Science degree from Cal Poly Pomona in economics, the economic analysis option, so it was very quant heavy in the field of money and banking. So there was a lot of econometrics, which is using statistics along with economic theories and coming up with models for that. So I'm really a kind of a data nerd. Well, maybe not a data nerd, but I'm an econ nerd. I'm an economist by trade. And I work as a forensic economist. I've been doing that for almost 16 years now. When I started, I just had my bachelor's degree, and I knew how to do all the operations and calculations with the best of them, but I believe that my education in economics really layered a new way of thinking on top of that. So I do, when I teach economics, and I'm not teaching it anymore because I'm in the business school and economics and finance are separate, and I'm teaching finance now, but when I was teaching economics, one of the things I stressed on class 1 was you have to be prepared for a paradigm shift, be able to think a different way. And us economists tend to think differently than most people. We don't think better, I'm not trying to say that, but we do think about things in a different manner. What are people's incentives? What is my opportunity cost? And we tend to do that as humans on our own, but as economists, we're a little more in tune to that. As far as my public service here in Sierra Madre, I am the current president of the Sierra Madre Community Foundation. I have served as the treasurer of the foundation, and I've served as the secretary, all 3 executive positions. I've been a plain old board member as well. Nothing wrong with that, because our board members do a lot of work on behalf of the city. So if you don't know much about the foundation, we are a charity that is singularly devoted to enhancing the quality of life here in Sierra Madre. We support civic improvement, the arts, children, anything from education as well. I have been the Cub Master of Troop 110. Given my time for a couple of years as Cub Master, the leader of Troop 110, a couple of years, well, it was up until last year, I handed it over, and I'm on the Troop Committee of Troop 110, and I'm also a merit badge counselor for many merit badges. I have been a manager of Little League for the past 7 years. I've done some fall ball as well. I was, as some of you may know, I was the chair of the Yes on Measure UUT campaign, and I was the chair of the No on Measure D campaign. No on Measure D is vitally important to our autonomy as a city, so I'm very proud of that. I also sat on a couple committees, the UUT Oversight Committee, the last one back in 2015. And I also sat on a special revenue committee, and it was basically the same individuals put together. Paul Savoy, Barry Gold, God rest his soul, Pat Holland, and I'm forgetting a couple others, I apologize. But that was a committee that kind of opened my eyes to the finances of the city of Sierra Madre, opening up the books, looking at the deferred maintenance that has been going on for many decades, and also understanding really our financing, what taxes come from where and how much comes in and how we benefit from those. So that's 5 minutes. Okay, so
Very good. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Matt?
Hi, Ed. Matt Bryan here.
Hi, pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Even though I'm a Bruin, you may still get my vote.
Thank you. I do have a nephew that played baseball at UCLA. I bought more UCLA gear over the past couple of years than I did.
Okay. Ed, people often use the term overdevelopment. Certainly, one of the main core missions of Preserve Sierra Madre is to prevent overdevelopment. I just wanted to ask you how you would define that term, particularly as it applies to Sierra Madre.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the word development, it can mean a number of things. It could mean new buildings, but it also, as my understanding, it also means renovations. So that's an important part of the definition. Yeah, I mean, when you think overdevelopment, the images that come to mind are, high density, high storied buildings that are very tight. You're thinking like the brownstones in New York and things of that nature. That's obviously not the character of Sierra Madre, nor do we want that to be the character of Sierra Madre. So, I mean, those are the things that I think about where, we kind of go back to some of the issues about, square footage on properties, coverage areas and setbacks. So I think, I don't know if I'm answering your question 100%, but I think that we have some pretty good controls currently in place to avoid those issues. And I think that's a good thing because it does help the overall charm and aesthetic of Sierra Madre.
Thanks, Ed.
Sure.
Matt?
Yeah, along those lines, a house went in on the northwest corner of Sunnyside and Mariposa that looks Arcadia McMansion style. Do you think we could have any controls over things that are excessively opposing to the environment of the architecture?
Yeah, so are you talking, I'm trying to imagine the house. Are you referring to what used to be the Daly estate that?
It had a small house on it. I think it got torn down and they put in a kind of McMansion style one-story house.
Yeah, it's on Mariposa. I think I know.
On Mariposa, west of Sunnyside on the north side.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, personally, I looked at that and was surprised to see it. I actually looked at it because I believe that was the old Daly house that $750,000 of it went to the library, which is that was the issue regarding the last city council meeting. So I just wanted to see where that property was. I think that was the property. Yeah, I mean, as far as aesthetics are concerned, I grew up in Arcadia and kind of at the beginning of all that. I don't think that house really fits as far as the aesthetics. But what can we do? I mean, that's the question.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have been working on design. Well, not we, but the Planning Commission has been working on design review policy and those issues. But some things are just built by right. I'm assuming that was one of those properties, as was the property across the street from me, which is a mid-century modern house.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, honestly, I'm going to be honest. I don't know what we can do to discourage that type of building, other than, as the economist in me, I think that maybe a house like that isn't going to be as valuable as a house that has a more pleasing aesthetic in our town. And I don't know, I don't know what we can do, to be honest, to stop those types of issues, other than what we have been working on with the design review policy and having issues about square footage, setbacks, and things like that.
Okay.
And I'm just being honest. I really don't know what we could do.
Yeah.
Pat?
Okay. Ed, my question is what is the very first issue, the first thing when you get on the council that you would tackle, and how would you do that?
I mean, that's a very good question. And I think there are some issues that will be coming before us that I don't know if I have a decision on whether or not this is the one I want to tackle. But I think obviously infrastructure is of vital importance. And as we think about water mains and we think about a library that's not safe and ADA compliant, I want to make sure that we are, especially for the library, we are, as a council, if I'm elected, getting information from the citizens. What do you want? Because the way I look at the position of a city council member, regardless of my strong views or views, I am there to represent the citizens of Sierra Madre. Yes, I have my own lens, and I'm going to want to make sure that we're fiscally sound and we're making the right decisions when we're spending taxpayer dollars, or asking for taxpayer dollars, whatever that might be. I don't know, depending on what the city wants, what the community wants, not the city as City Hall, but the people that live in the city. So I think tackling, I'm probably going to have to be heavily involved in solving problems regarding the library, and then the continuing problems of replacing water mains. I think the education that has been going on regarding how we are financing the pay-as-you-go program has been poor. A lot of people ask, why is my water bill so high? And if they actually look at the line items and they see the water part, the actual water is very low, but it's the infrastructure of getting the water to the homes that's high, right? And there's a large line item that is dedicated directly to infrastructure repair. So that is something I might want to tap into a little bit more communication as to what those dollars are getting spent on and how they're effectively being spent, and whether or not that's the right way to do it. I'm not suggesting that we replace all of it at once, because there is some existing water mains that are still working well, even beyond their useful life. But what we cannot do, what we have done in the past, is ignore maintenance of our assets, because nobody wants blight, right? Nobody wants dilapidated public assets or private assets. So I think that's the thing that I'm going to be focused on early on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Ed.
Hi, Deb.
I have a couple of questions moving backwards a bit, but why are you running for city council? Why this year, and why for 2 years instead of the 4-year seat, one of the 4-year seats?
Very specific to me, right? So.
Well, yeah, all general, but then I started thinking, well, I really want to know, why didn't you go for the 4-year seat?
Yeah, that's a great question. And as hopefully you guys can tell, I'm an honest guy, so I'll tell you exactly, right? So we don't have a dictatorship in our household here. My wife is vitally important in decision making. I have been encouraged, as you probably know, for the last 2 city council elections to run for city council, because I have been involved in issues in town, and I try to stay involved. I volunteer my time whenever I can, and have young children, and the time just wasn't right both of those times. Then enter 2020 and John Capocha on his keyboard, trying to get people to run for city council. And had a long talk with my wife, and we said, you know, it would be unfortunate if somebody just ran and slid right in there that didn't know this town and really cared about this town or loved this town. So I think the time is right. So it really is the next step in my volunteerism. And I do come from a place, and if you knew my wife's grandmother, Arlie Hahn, she was so focused on community service and giving back. And I learned so much from the time that I spent with her, that I came to understand that nothing great happens in this town without the volunteers, people such as you, right? That is why we have nice things, because we have an engaged citizenry here in Sierra Madre. So I feel as though I have some things to offer the city council that hasn't been there before, as far as my expertise in economics and finance, sorry about the dogs, and pet ownership. And I feel as though I can bring something that hasn't really been there in a while. Sometimes we have to rely on city management to tell us whether something's good or bad. So I want to be that person that could think about alternative solutions that are better, that could potentially be better for our citizens. So it's kind of why I'm running. I feel a call to service, and I feel, what better way to serve and love your neighbors, as far as the way I am, than running for city council and being the voice of the public there on that dais. And why this 2-year seat? So the 2-year seat, so again, we kind of go back to my education. I see option value there, and I'm being honest, right? I look at the 2-year seat and I say, hey, if I am overwhelmed, you know, I have a family.
Yeah.
There's an option for me to serve 2 years, and then hopefully at the end of those 2 years, if it's not for me, we can get another great citizen in that's in my seat. And if I really enjoy it, it's 6 years, and if I love it immensely, which I think I might, I feel like that 2-year seat is kind of a stub period, and then 2 full terms could be in the future, if the citizens would want me. So that's why the 2-year seat. That means potentially 3 elections, which isn't, you know, I had to weigh those things. So I weighed the options, and I thought the 2-year seat has the better option value for me and where I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary is now going to test your economic knowledge.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary.
Perfect question for you, Edward. At the last city council meeting, we know they were discussing the library, and then the council also brought up that they need more money for the fire, the police, and the library. Well, as someone who is on a fixed income, I'm curious if you have any ideas for raising revenue for the fire, police, and library other than raising taxes. If you have any ideas that maybe we haven't heard before, so.
So, you know, that's a great question, Gary. And it's something that I think is important, given that I have a knowledge of this town and what it's about. And I'll try to answer your question, but I kind of want to give you a little background. I see this town as a town that's kind of a tale of two types of people. Individuals that have moved here recently that are of means and have a significant income. And then a lot of people, which have been here for a long time, that have a lot of their wealth stored up in their home. Maybe income is fixed, as you said. That's not something they could spend, you know, it's hard to spend dollars, and you're not going to liquidate your home in order to finance extra taxes, right? So I want to say I'm keenly aware of that, and I hear some policies that sound great on paper that really may not take in consideration those people that have been here for a long time. And I just want to say that I am in tune to those types of policies, and I will be the advocate best I can out of 5 people for those individuals that have those issues. Yeah, you could have a big, large, beautiful house, but like you said, the income portion is fixed. So to answer your question, I mean, I've thought about this. And I think what the current council is thinking is that it's 2 different things, right? Which could potentially be 2 different taxes. One being the library coming from a citizen group, and the other, the other being for public safety. And it concerns me that we would have to do an ask for public safety. As you guys know, I was part of the Measure UUT campaign, but I said, if you were at any of those meetings, I said, look, a UUT is not a source of revenue that we ought to rely on as a city, if we can help it, because it's not, as here comes the economics, it's not tied to our biggest expense, which is earnings, right? That's one of our biggest expense. So as earnings go up, do utilities go up, right? And I think it could be potentially non-sustainable. So as people get more solar and people cut their landline and people get rid of their TV, that revenue source could drop. That being said, it's a blessing and a curse that we have very low revenue for sales tax, because if you think about Monrovia and Arcadia that rely on the sales tax, imagine what their books are going to look like next year.
Yeah.
And we have a pretty solid revenue base here, which is a good thing. So, outside of what's traditionally done, I don't have an answer. Some of the answers could be release some of our autonomy and have sheriffs and LA County Fire in here. I don't think the city's ready for that. I think we know that actually having our own fire and police actually helps preserve the home values here, because we can directly speak to the management and speak to what our wants and needs are to our public safety. Whereas if you are contracting, you don't have that luxury. I'm not trying to sidestep the answer. I just don't have a solution. And we, back in the revenue committee, we were trying to come up with creative solutions to have revenue other than the UUT. But I would think, people always say once you get a tax, you never get it back. But if there is some way we can offset the UUT, if we have to go with some type of parcel tax or something like that, I think there should be some kind of carrot with the stick, so to speak, right? Releveling. And that's what I would hope we could do in order to do that. But I don't have a great answer for you, Gary. Sorry, Ann.
No problem. Could I add a comment?
Yes.
Barry, when he was campaigning, $400,000 a year we were going to save on having the sheriff, and we even had helicopters with that sheriff service, which seemed to be very satisfactory for the 6 months they were here.
Yeah. Is that a comment or a question? Do you want me to speak to that?
Sure.
I understand that.
Just briefly.
Yeah, so the level of service may or may not have been the same. And if we could not come up with more money, like I said, the control or the autonomy of our city is important. Let's say, as you know, the sheriffs have LaSera. We have CalPERS, they have LaSera. If LaSera starts having issues with their pension program, we teach us on day 1 of economics, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. So as the purchaser of service, it would be pushed back to us. And these are things that weren't talked about or thought about too often. Salaries go up because of some kind of memorandum of understanding, collective bargaining agreement with the LA sheriffs. Okay, well, we have this much to spend. Well, then you get one less officer. We have no control over that. So that was my concern at the time. If that's ever the correct solution, again, I am there. I want to be there as the servant of the public. And if that if we ever get to the point where that's the correct solution, I would be more than happy to consider that.
Thanks, Ed. There are two questions from the attendees. Have you heard that it continues to be an issue that people who are not white do not always feel comfortable in Sierra Madre? What do you see the role of the City Council in promoting racial diversity and racial acceptance in Sierra Madre?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on where that's coming from. If it's coming from the public, you know, you can look at my last name and see in my skin tone, right? I'm not the white guy, right? I grew up in Arcadia when the demographic was a little different, and I was an individual, a very rare individual in that town. I understand the concerns, but what we can do, I mean, we can be involved in because we have autonomy, we can be involved in our police and our fire. That's where we can have control as a city council, to make sure we have policies that are equitable to all individuals, regardless of socioeconomic status or race or ethnicity.
Thank you. Matt, the monastery question.
Yeah. Ed, as you know, the existing project being proposed for the monastery grounds is going to require a zoning change from institutional residential. That issue is going to come before the city council. There's no legal obligation for the city council to approve that zoning change. And I just wanted to ask you, what aspects of the project are you going to be scrutinizing in order to decide whether or not to approve that zoning change?
Yeah, you know, I did speak to that a little bit in my answer to you folks. I think some of the things we need to well, one of the biggest issues to look at is if the zoning changes to R1, as you well know, the amount of homes that could be there relative to what the MOU is stating is vastly different. But I want to make sure that's not licensed for huge lots and huge, let's say, call them the McMansions, right? Or a huge tract of one style of architecture. The one style of architecture thing does kind of concern me for that area. So I would want to make sure that we're keeping the developer, if it's switched to R1, accountable to what we have asked for regarding square foot coverage on lots, setbacks, and those issues. I think those are very important, and we need to hold them to their word on those issues. I don't know what we can do about design review, but hopefully we can have some kind of say in what goes up there. And that's the good thing about having some dialogue with the monastery and potentially the contractor or the developer, because we can have a say, but with the institutional, I don't know what we can say. So that's what I'd be watching, to make sure that they don't put one under on us.
Thanks, Ed.
Over. And I know you're a stakeholder, so it's important to me.
Why am I not hearing?
It's important to me to know what your feelings are, since you live so close.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ed. We only have a couple of minutes left before I ask you to wrap up. Deb, I don't see Tracy.
No, it's Kelly. She says she's having a technical problem. Okay. So I told her to text me back if she needs some help.
Okay, a quick question from Judy then. You have to unmute, Judy.
Yes, I did. I'd like to thank you for the honor that you gave my husband. He greatly enjoyed serving on that commission with you and spoke about you quite often. That being said, okay. Am I finished now?
What's your question?
Anne brought up the house on Mariposa, which frankly is an eyesore. And I do believe that a lot of the control of the design of a house comes just from the planning department. And they don't always care about the aesthetics. is there a way that the city council, especially with the design review being in question, that the city council can take that out of the hands of the department and put it into the hands of the planning commission so that that gets insured for years to come?
Yeah, that's a great question, Judy. And, I don't know if that's going to be whether or not when I'm on the council or not, but I know that design review policy issue has been pushed. And I don't know how, I'm assuming that everybody on the screen has been following that very closely. And I know that the tone of the current city council is to have less bureaucracy for development, which, again, we're talking about balance, which is generally a good thing. So you have more options to do things, therefore home values can increase. But then you get something like we had, right? That's the problem. So, if we change our design review policy according to California law, and now it would have to wholly be objectifiable, as you know. I think they're being very creative, and the Planning Commission, and they're going to ask City Council to then have thresholds within the planning department. But then that comes back to your problem, and I wasn't aware of that. So I'm glad that you brought it up to my attention, that the planning department isn't as stringent on design review as you would like. So, from the way our things are going because of California state law and what we can and cannot do, I feel like a couple things could happen, right? If something is questionable to the planning department, I don't know how we write this into the code or law. It gets kicked back to the planning commission because they're trying to have the planning commission look at less. But if it's something is different, it should be kicked back. And so I don't have a great answer for that because this is really something that you brought to my attention. I didn't even think about that issue. So that's important. Thank you.
Welcome.
Ed,
Thank you.
Thanks very much indeed. We've come to the end of your time, but we don't actually have our next.
Well, she is, David, I just called her. She's working on it. She says she'll be connected in a minute.
Okay. Anyway,
so
Ed,
she'll be here in 1 minute. We hope.
Ed, thank you very, very much indeed for agreeing to be subjected to this. As we are doing for all the candidates, we wish you the very best of luck in your campaign, and we thank you as a citizen for putting yourself forward for the slings and arrows of a political campaign. Thank you very much indeed, and the best of luck. And again, thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. And this was a very pleasant process, to be honest.
Okay.
I didn't know what to expect, and I enjoyed our time together. Thank you.
Thanks,
And we'll
Ed.
see you this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we are now waiting for Kelly Krebs. How do you pronounce it? Here we are. And she has appeared as an attendee. I'm promoting her to panelist. And I'm now asking her to unmute and to start video.
There we go.
Kelly.
Hi there.
How do you pronounce your second name?
It's Krebs with a long E.
Krebs with a long E. So Kelly, I'm David Gordon. I'm moderating this session with the help of a steering committee. We'd like you to talk about yourself. Not for the whole half an hour, but just for 5 minutes, just to give an idea of who you are and what you're like. And then we'll start pummeling you with questions.
Okay.
So over to you. We have a half an hour in your pleasant company.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thanks for your patience with my tech issues. Yes, as we said, my name is Kelly Krebs. I have lived in Sierra Madre for almost 11 years with my family. We live on Manzanita and Lima. I'm sure this group has lots of opinions about whether it's Lima or Lima. So we live right in the center of that controversy. And I've raised two sons here. They are now 13 and 16. Both went to public school here in town. In fact, my youngest actually went to the community nursery school in Sierra Vista Park. And we've been involved at all levels of school. I volunteered in their classrooms, obviously at the nursery school, as well as the elementary school throughout. And both my sons played Little League. We are a 110% Little League family for sure. So about 3 years ago, maybe a little bit longer now, 4 years ago, I joined the board. I sort of looked around and said, you know, we love this experience. We love everything about it. And I know there's hard work to be done. And I want to make sure that there's good people doing it. And I want to help. And I want to make sure that it stays a great experience for everyone to come. So I'm still on the board. Even though my youngest son is now out of Little League, I stayed on primarily because the field use agreement between the city, the Little League, and the Softball League came up for renewal at the end of last year. So I stayed on to help negotiate and put that into place. And now we've been extended, so I'm on an extra extended term. So yeah, so I can't get enough of Little League, and I'm really love my service on that board. Professionally, I'm a lawyer. I've been an attorney for over 20 years. I'm a transactional lawyer, which means I don't go to court, which is awesome. I do transactions and mostly buying and selling companies. In fact, right now I'm helping a client sell a big division of their company to a competitor. So, you know, a lot of what I've done throughout my professional career is negotiate, you know, bring parties together to a, you know, mutually satisfactory end. And I feel like a lot of those skills, the negotiation, the consensus building are really, you know, going to be important skills if I am successful in getting elected to the council. I think a lot of that professional work, spotting problems, coming up with solutions, and then helping people come together and get to an end point is going to be important. You know, I'm running for council primarily like I joined the board for Little League. I love living here. I think we need you know, good, hardworking stewards of our city. I think we need people who are practical and sensible and want to make good choices. I'm happy that the city is in good financial shape. I mean, even in the 11 years I've been here, that hasn't always been the case. So I want to make sure that we continue to make smart financial decisions so that we can continue to provide all of the services and support all of the community events, I think, that make it so special to live here, you know, the reason why we all live here. You know, I was particularly surprised or pleased, I guess, to hear that we had a surplus in this last budget, which, you know, allowed for some of the support of the businesses during the quarantine. And I think that's, you know, that's important to have those surpluses so that we can be flexible when things come up. You know, who knows how much the fire is going to cost, for example, and it's good to be in a good financial health so that we can respond to that and not have things like that, you know, really put us in bad stead. So, you know, I mean, my primary, I see the role of the city council folks as representatives of the community. I don't have a long list of things that I'm anti this or save the that, or a long list of my own agenda. I've done a lot of calling and talking to voters and residents one-on-one and finding out what's important to them and what positions they take on some of the issues that we know we're going to be facing the council in the next term. So I'm really interested in just hearing people's thoughts. And, you know, there's so many people who are so invested in the city and the city's future that, you know, and who have been here longer than I, and, you know, have depths of knowledge that I, you know, can't pretend to have about certain things. And so I've really enjoyed talking to just a whole swath of people throughout
I can't do this.
Thank you, Katie.
A whole swath of, you know, people throughout town. You know, one of the greatest things I think about running for office in a small town is, you know, I'll have a call list of people I'm calling, and every 8th or 10th name, I'm like, oh, I know them, or I recognize that name, or, you know, I'll have an address, and I can picture in my mind, like, you know, where they are in the city, and it's nice to have that familiarity. I can't imagine, you know, sort of running for any other office where you're sort of like out in the faceless unknown talking to people. I like the fact that, you know, everyone sort of is connected, and seems like almost everyone, not everyone, but a lot of people I talk to, there's, kind of 6 degrees of separation. We sort of know somebody who knows somebody, and I haven't even been here that long, and so I love that aspect as well. So that's a little bit about me, and obviously I'm here to hear from you, and obviously I know generally what's important to this group, but I'll be interested to hear what your questions are and get even a better sense of it.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Starting with Matt.
Hi, Kelly. Matt Bryant here.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Kelly, you hear the term overdevelopment often bandied about. As you know, Preserve Sierra Madre, one of our core missions is to prevent overdevelopment. And I just wanted to ask you what that term means to you, particularly how it applies to Sierra Madre.
Well, I think, the good news on that front is on a kind of macro level. I think, it's not hard to prevent overdevelopment in the city because it's not like we have a lot of free space to develop. And so, where we sort of are in terms of the density of the city, mostly, kind of where it's going to be, unless there was some, huge undertaking to raise and redevelop any area, which I certainly don't support, and I certainly am not hearing any support from the community for anything like that. So on a macro level, I think, your job, I think, is probably made a little bit easier by the sort of history and the amount of time, the town has been developed. Obviously, we do have the one area with the monastery that is open land, and we all know that that's at issue, and that the church wants to sell it. So I in that area specifically, I was very happy to hear that the initial proposal of over 100 single family homes, or whatever the initial number was, had been greatly reduced, and the current proposal of 40 or 42 houses over that swath. Now, I haven't seen exactly how they are intending to place them within that area, and I know that they want to leave some land open in the back, and they've committed to a park, and so I'm not sure exactly how that's all laid out, but in general, I feel like that's not in itself, on the face of it, overdevelopment. On a micro level, I think of overdevelopment as kind of the buzzword McMansionization, overdeveloping a particular property. Is a homeowner that's wanting to grow their home or redo their home, and there I think we do need to be careful, because I do think that there's much more of a danger of that here. Obviously property values are high, and so people are paying a lot to move here, and I can see people being motivated to say, oh, well, I paid all this money, I want to make sure I have the grandest house in the neighborhood. And I think that's something I would like to protect against, because I do think one of the benefits of our town is sort of the eclectic, that there is no sort of uniform. It's not Santa Barbara, it's not San Marino, where we have sort of a uniform sense of style, that everyone can kind of do what they want to do. But I do think there needs to be limits, and I do think that overdevelopment on an individual property by property basis is something that I would not support. And again, because I don't hear people saying that they want the ability to do that, and they certainly don't want their neighbors to have the ability to do it.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelly. This is Pat Alcorn.
Hi there.
My question is, what is the first thing, should you be elected on the city council, that you would like to tackle? What issue? And how would you go about that?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's two things that sort of come to mind. One is kind of both of which are kind of underway. I think in kind of general terms, I think there's been a long history of neglect in some of the city infrastructure. The obvious places are the water system, and obviously the current council and the city manager have really aggressively tackled that. And so I'm certainly interested in learning more about that and making sure that we are continuing that program, because I do feel like that was neglected for a really long time, and we're going to have to be sort of correcting that well into the future. And on that same kind of theme, I know this has been a hot topic this week, or in general, but particularly this week, with the library, and really sort of figuring out what the short, mid, and long-term plan is for that property, and making sure that again, we're listening to the community and making sure that those things align with what sort of the interests of the folks who want to make sure that we have a vibrant library versus the folks that are maybe not as interested in paying for it, and figuring out how to balance those things. So I think two things. One, I would definitely need to go on a little bit of a learning campaign to sort of delve into the specifics. I mean, we all know kind of the overview of all of those things, but I would want to learn a little bit more, and also then sort of map out how those infrastructure projects will affect the budget going forward, because we certainly don't want to swamp the budget and with those projects, but they're very important, and so that's sort of my first priority.
Thank you.
Hey, Kelly, Deb Sheridan.
Hi there. We've been emailing. I feel like we know each other.
Yes, nice to actually see you. I have a couple of questions, and you did touch on this. Why are you running for city council? You did tell us, but if you wanted to just expand a little bit, and why now in particular?
That's interesting. I'll just be a little freeform on the last question, because this isn't sort of a practiced politician answer, because I'm not a practiced politician. I've been relatively politically active for a long time. It won't surprise folks, I suppose, to hear that activism has kind of ratcheted up over, I don't know, maybe a 4-year period or so. And I got to a point recently where I was a little bit overwhelmed with kind of the national and the sort of the situation going on at the broader level, and felt like it was time to maybe stop kind of overanalyzing and complaining about what was going on, and start figuring out what I could do. And while I'm not at all interested in holding national office, I thought, well, one thing I can do is serve locally. And while that may not directly affect the overall situation, I certainly feel like it has it's a drop in the bucket, and maybe there's some ripple effect. And I'd like to sort of honestly put my money where my mouth is. And I'm a very linear person. I'm a very rational person. I'm a list maker, pros, cons. And I'm sure if I had sat down at the very beginning of this decision and made a pro-con list, I'm sure the con list for running for office would have been a lot longer than the pro list. And so I didn't do that. It was very like instinctual and intuitive for me, which is very not me. And so, honestly, it was kind of a call to service. Obviously, there was a little bit of a, it seemed like there was going to be, not as much interest. And then I had a few people in town who I trust and admire and have a long history of service themselves, who encouraged me to run, which sort of planted the seed. I sort of laughed like, maybe. And so, I mean, that's really the specifics of why now. I think it's just sort of the crossroads of everything that's been going on, and just the feeling that we need more people who are just ordinary citizens wanting to solve problems, working hard to make things better. And honestly, from a personal standpoint, I think it's going to make me feel like something's being accomplished versus just the spin of all of the larger issues that you feel so disconnected from and you can't really directly influence.
Thank you.
Hi, Kelly. Gary Hood here.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Pleasure. At the last city council meeting, the council brought up the fact that the city is going to need to raise more money to support the fire, the police, and the library. And as a person who is on a fixed income, I was wondering if you had any ideas other than raising taxes, what we can do to bring in some more revenue for these crucial city services.
Yes, it's a problem, right? I mean, we're on a very thin margin because of the nature of our business base, and it's that perennial, or constant battle between, obviously it would be great if we could generate, a lot more sales tax and business tax from a more vibrant business community. And when I say vibrant, I don't mean that our business community now isn't vibrant, but from a different sort of mix of types of businesses, and particularly on the sales tax side, we would need a very different type of business or business mix to be in town. And I think the problem is, like, you're right. We don't want to raise taxes if we don't have to, and it's very difficult to do that for folks like you and others. On the other hand, the idea that we could, meaningfully increase the sales tax side of things, I think, is a little bit optimistic. Because I don't hear from anyone any support for the type of business that would actually meaningfully move the needle in that area. I mean, I don't see anybody wanting a big box store, a hardware store, a car dealership. So I struggle a little bit with that, because you're right. I mean, there's this tension between, obviously it'd be great to be generating business revenue, or sales tax revenue from the business, especially because that's not just the burden of the residents, because you can attract folks from other places, and so it's not just being supported by folks who live here. But on the other hand, I know that there's wouldn't be sort of public support for the development of a business district that you would need to sort of meaningfully support the budget with that kind of income. So I struggle with that a little bit, as I think most do. And I honestly don't have a lot of creative, financing ideas. I know that, that there was a long and hard study and analysis done when they decided to, look to pass the UUT. And I know that, that was determined to be, one of the better options for a lot of reasons, primarily because it was one that, kept all of the taxes here, and we didn't have to share with the county and with the state level, agencies. And so, I mean, I do think that if there is a need, we need to think about, those kinds of options that maximize the benefit locally, so that we're not, taxing people and then sending a portion of it out of the city.
I was told that Sierra Madre, the city of Sierra Madre, pays the highest taxes in the state of California. Have you heard that?
No, I have not heard that. And I find that hard to believe, because, like, for example, Monrovia, like, they have 4 or 5 parcel taxes. So their property owners are paying quite a large amount of money that, we don't have a parcel tax. So I don't know. I've not heard that. So no, I don't know where that.
Doesn't sound true then, right?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I wouldn't. I mean, I need to know a lot more information about where that's coming from. I think, people feel like our utilities costs are high, and that's probably true, because there's the combination of the rate, given that we have our own utility, and then also the additional fees that we're charging to be able to support the infrastructure. But I mean, unfortunately, it's the current residents that are sort of paying for what residents for years basically, I mean, I want to say got for free, but pretty close. I mean, so there was a lot of years where there was no investment made in any of those systems. And so, especially folks who have been here a long time, I sort of view like, well, you have to enjoy that, and now we're kind of paying the bills on the back end. And unfortunately, people who are newer to town are, kind of disproportionately bearing that. But, I think people seem to think it's worth it. And obviously, each new person that comes into town and buys a new house, that also helps the budget, right? Because those properties then get reassessed at a, I mean, more than half of our budget is property tax. So, right, I mean, the most important thing we can do is maintain property values and attract new homeowners, so that we can, get out from under the Prop 13 incrementalization and get some of those reassessments, so that those property taxes go up.
Kelly, have you had any experience with any of the commissions, any of the city commissions?
Well, as I mentioned before, yeah. So my most direct involvement has been with community services, and that was through my involvement with Little League. And so, a lot of the things that we do with the city sort of goes first through the commission. And certainly the first go around we had with the use agreement for the fields in the city went directly through the commission. This last time we actually were dealing directly with the council and staff mostly, but yeah. So that, I would say, that's the one I've had the most involvement.
As a result of experience, you have a view about the role and the functioning of the city commissions?
I was disappointed that they had to be reduced in size from lack of interest or lack of application. It's interesting. There's a bit of a disconnect to me, because I've said I've called lots of people and talked to, I don't know, 100 or more. And it seems like there's so much interest in being involved and being of service. And so I'm not sure if it's a function of people not knowing of the opportunity or understanding what the commitment is or what the role is, or whether it's people just saying that they're interested and then not actually signing up. But yeah, I mean, I've seen so much activism on so many levels here. It's surprising to me that it kind of stops at that level. I was telling someone, I think of all of those kind of middle school kids, moms, like, there's no one more committed to service than moms of school age kids. I mean, the elementary school is just teeming with women, mostly women, I shouldn't say just women, but mostly women, moms, just doing, so much of the heavy lifting. And then there's a huge drop off, after elementary school in terms of the involvement. I feel like there's a harnessing there that that we need to do and sort of convert some of those folks who are so involved at the school level, convert them into, into activists or volunteers, in a different way once they're kind of out of the school realm. And, I mean, that's not like a campaign that I'm looking for, but I do feel like there's lots of people like that who should be, made aware of those opportunities. And and so many people are interested in serving. And so, I think, certainly all of the event committees, I mean, I definitely think that, all of the things that we love, the parade, the trail race, all of those things, I mean, that's all driven by, individual volunteers and very dedicated folks. And so I think, the city probably doesn't run, I mean, not in the operational sense, but just on the quality of life sense, does not run without, all of those volunteers. So I'd like to see, a push to like a PR campaign to raise awareness of the commissions and kind of what they do, and maybe making people interested in volunteering.
I think you've hit on a very important issue, that there is an enormous amount of volunteering in the city, but it's based around institutions other than the city itself. It's to say schools, churches, Little League, and that the city itself has a problem in relating to its citizens. I know an attempt is going to be made to increase the readership of Village Voice, but actually think as a campaign issue, you might have hit on something really important there. So that's a comment rather than a question. Actually, I'll turn it into a question. How do you think it might be achieved?
I honestly think it's communication. I mean, I've felt, medium active, in probably the last 5 or 6 years, we've lived here, again, through those institutions that you're mentioning. And, I didn't really, I don't hear that much about, what the city's doing. And I mean, I have friends who were serving on, mostly the Community Service Commission, but, they didn't really talk about it. Like, they didn't really talk about what they did and like the importance of it. And, so I do feel like a couple of things. One, I think the commissioners themselves should, be kind of, a little bit more out there, talking, sort of talking it up. And I do think that, I mean, I don't think people know when the applications are due and when the the cycle is. I mean, I had a couple people ask me that question and I didn't even know the answer. And so I do think that I think, and frankly, communication between the city and the residents is, kind of a bigger, I think a bigger issue, or, it's not just specific to the commissions. I mean, I think there was a lot of feedback at the beginning of the fire incident that, people felt like they weren't getting as much information from our city as they were from, surrounding cities. And there may have been perfectly legitimate and good reasons for that, given sort of the location of the fire and which agencies were leading the charge there. But, that needed to be explained, and then and then I think people would have felt better, like, oh, okay, that's why, and that's where I should get my information, and that's good information. So I do think that there, we need to be, and I think, everyone's sort of very reliant on social media, and I know that there's a huge swath of the town that's not, that's not a viable source or a reliable source. So I think we need to think creatively about ways, obviously the newspaper and other things, but it's it's hard because it's a small town and we don't have kind of the media aspect that we can leverage like some of the larger towns can.
Thank you. We're running close out of time, but there's a question.
Wow, that went quick.
that Matt Bryant likes to ask.
Okay. Hi, Kelly. Kelly, as you know, the monastery project is going to require a zoning change from institutional to residential. That's going to come before the city council. The city council is under no legal obligation to grant that change. But I'm wondering what aspects of a proposed project you will be scrutinizing to decide whether or not you want to grant that zoning change.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I'm really interested to see how the environmental impact reports come back. I think, the two things to me that jump out at the top are traffic. I'm interested to see if they're planning on, punching through to Michelinda, so they create another east-west artery and not put more pressure on, on the streets up there. I'm also interested to know what they're projecting in the way of water use. I know that part of the MOU was, or at least part of the discussions, I don't know if it's actually in the MOU, but part of the discussions was about, offsetting the water usage by, having them buy so many, acre feet, kind of in advance. And I thought that was an interesting idea that I'd like to know more about. And honestly, I mean, I'm looking to make sure that they, as much as possible, minimize the impact of the development, on that neighborhood for sure, and then the city overall. It's just that really hard balance between, respecting the rights of a property owner to, divest their property. That's their right, and it's hard to imagine, preventing that. But then, again, sort of making sure that the outcome of it is as best as it can be for the community, both the direct surrounding communities and the city. I don't know that it's a foregone conclusion that they're for sure going to go. I mean, I don't think the institutional aspect is fully off the table from my understanding. But so I do think also we need to kind of weigh, whether there's a better path if they need more, more of a variance decision from the city, whether that helps put the city at the table to, help influence the development versus, if they decide that, that we're not being helpful or cooperative, and or maybe it looks like the zoning variance isn't going to come in, whether then we're at a disadvantage because then there's less there's less restrictions on what they can do if they don't need to change the zoning as it is. And so I sort of weigh those two things, and I think at the moment I'm coming out on the balance of like I'd like to be at the table. I mean, I think that's that sort of goes without saying. And so to the extent that the zoning change will allow for that. That's kind of where I'm at right now. But I'm also open to if they had institutional proposal, I would definitely look at that as well, especially if it would be less impactful on the community.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the invitation.
And we would like to, as we're wishing all the candidates, we wish each of them success in their campaign. And we thank them very much for agreeing to undergo the swings and arrows of a political campaign and to volunteer and to put your head above the parapet. So thank you so much for this morning, and the very best of luck.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Now we are joined by Kurt Richter. You are the last of our candidates to appear.
How are you guys holding up?
We're just getting into this thing. We're wishing you could go on all afternoon.
Yeah, right.
And some of us, and some people who are in Sierra Madre, I'm not there at the moment, will no doubt be coming along this evening to see you perform once again at the Women's Club.
This afternoon, yeah.
Good afternoon.
Looking forward.
Anyway, Kurt, so welcome. Thank you for agreeing to do this. We'd like you to begin by talking about yourself. Most of us want to do this. You have an uninterrupted attempt to explain to us something about yourself so that you can come over as a human being.
Oh, thank you. I'm 65 years old. I recently retired 7 or 8 years ago. My family first immigrated here in 1924, and I've had family members living in Sierra Madre continually since that time, 96 years. As you guys probably know, in the 60s, a couple of my uncles built at least 200 or 300 houses here. And to me, not the greatest houses in Sierra Madre. Some of them have been remodeled and are nicer now, but they were 60s track houses. And I always said, why, please get an architect. But anyway, so in my career, I spent 30 years starting out in sales, marketing, then promoted into upper management. And so I ended up running large sales forces and manufacturing facilities and distribution centers. So my skills in management, or my management styles, I should say, are very, very much in tune to listening and working with, teams and people, which, the way this whole way I view the whole city council thing is, the city is our team, we all have to work together, because I think we all have the basic desire of how we'd like Sierra Madre to be. We have this wonderful village that's located right next door to a huge metropolitan center, and we're to the point now where obviously, as far as development, there really isn't a lot of open space. We're kind of down to our last one or two open spaces here in town, the monastery and one Carter. Otherwise, our development issues are going to be a little different. And one thing I've been trying to focus on and understand is, there's a lot of very old houses here in town that, as people sell those houses, people are going to want to remodel. And so I think our vision moving forward is how we manage these remodels, because we certainly don't want to end up like Arcadia, with big houses on small lots and what have you. But we also have to understand that, the city actually has a pretty bad reputation as far as developers go. It's just very difficult sometimes to get projects done. I've been closely following a project right next door to me here on Mariposa, where a developer bought a little old house that was really a mess, and is developing it and turning it into a nice new, still small, but very, I think what we need here. And he's gone through a lot of difficulties. And so I think we, as a town, need to try to induce people to come in and build the types of projects that we want. And just to go back to the monastery, obviously, if we had a choice, I would have voted, for no development at all. I love having that space up there, and the open space and nature preserve. But obviously, we don't have that choice, and so we need to really manage that in a way that's better and betterment for the city. Now, obviously, I don't like talking about myself that much. So if there's any questions you have, and with I don't know what else you want to know about me. I've got 10-year-old twins, which is so. Like I said, I'm retired. I've got the time. I've got the energy to really put to this job, and it's important to me because I moved back here 10 years ago because this is where I wanted my kids to grow up. And so my goals, I think, would fall very much in line with your organizations, which is to really, preserve Sierra Madre and protect it, and, to keep the feel that we have. But we still have to, understand we're, at times are changing, and we're going to have to do the developments and do them right.
Thank you. Matt?
Yeah, hi, Kurt. Matt Bryant here. How you doing?
Pleasure, Matt.
Kurt, you pretty much answered my question regarding where you see the overdevelopment threat kind of coming from in Sierra Madre, from remodels and things like that. And so I want to ask you how you balance the, private property rights of an owner that, say, wants to tear down a one-story home, build a two-story home, or somebody who has an existing one-story home that wants to add a second story. And let's say, hypothetically, you have one-story homes on each side. So when they do that, that's going to impact adversely on the privacy, on the views, and quite frankly, the values of those next-door neighbors. And that's an issue that has occurred quite often in the Highlands up in Arcadia, where you have these one-story, ranch-style homes, and they were building these enormous McMansions that, were sandwiching in the poor one-story homeowner who bought maybe 30 years ago and expected to enjoy those same, views, privacy, and all that. So I'm wondering how you balance that between those, really inherently conflicting goals there that the homeowner has and the neighbors have.
I think reasonableness is important. Now, I spent many years, I lived down in Laguna Beach, and they have some very strict codes and laws where you cannot affect another person's view. That they are protected. And I think that with some reasonableness, the city should probably have codes that would reasonably protect and try to balance between the two. But if something is going to really, somebody's got a beautiful mountain view and somebody wants to block that with a home, I would say that we need to possibly control that from happening.
And Kurt, just a quick follow-up on that. I know with the design review changes that are being contemplated, right now, if you want to, add a second story, you have to go before the design review. But they're thinking about taking that away. And that's a pretty big change. And I know I was one of the people that fought to have that, two-story or second story that can really potentially impact on the neighbors go through that design review to try to mitigate the pernicious effects on the nearby one-story neighbors.
I would agree with you on that. I think we have to have some reasonableness, but like I said, it really is not fair, and like I said, I come from Laguna, where views are essential, and I think that's an important part here. We live in these mountains, where there's beautiful views and privacy. The town likes its privacy. People, the way the whole neighborhood is, and it's what's difficult too is because there's a lot of houses that are older, smaller, and very close to each other, and so the risk of building up and really affecting neighbors is great. So I would think that we need to really look closely at making it difficult to do big expansions, that would negatively affect the neighbors.
Thanks, Kurt.
I just know that from my perspective, living here, I know what I would want, and I wouldn't want something huge going next to me that's gonna, where they're gonna be staring into my backyard and, making it uncomfortable.
Thank you.
Kurt, this is Pat Alcorn here.
Hi, Pat.
My question is that what would be the first issue, should you get on the city council, that you would like to tackle and to make sure that this makes Sierra Madre better and for all the citizens, and how would you do that?
Well, right now the monastery is on the table, and so I think that needs to be a focus. But there's still so many unknowns. How can we say what we want, but we don't know what we're getting necessarily? There's ideas. So I really think that the design review issues need to be looked at, because like I said, there's a lot of homes that, are going to need to be remodeled. And I think we need to have a plan so that people coming in know what they're able to do when they're coming in. And, and there's other issues, like I mentioned the house next to me. Right next door, there's a house that really needs to be condemned. And I haven't had a chance to research, but maybe you can help me. What is the process that if you have a house that nobody lives in, and it's just vacant and overgrown and a fire hazard and a hazard if kids got in or homeless, I haven't been able to really get a good handle on what the city can do.
I think the city has an ordinance for that, so you
Okay.
might go down to the planning department and talk to them about it.
I will do that.
Are there any other issues that are coming before the city that you would like to talk about, like infrastructure or whatever?
Well, I think that, the water infrastructure is so far behind the 8 ball. It's what, 70 years, too late. And I think they've done a reasonable job of putting a patch on it and, with the budget and getting to the work spot. And I think that's the strategy we need to do, because I don't think raising our water rates to try to, massively fix everything right now is what the people want. We're already on the higher end of water rates. And so infrastructure, I think we need to stay the course and just do the best we can and make good decisions as they come up.
Thank you.
Hi, Kurt. Deb Sheridan.
Hi, Deb.
And my question is, why did you decide to run for city council and why now?
Well, I always had this thought about getting into politics. Even when I was in college, I was going to, my plans got a little grandiose because I was going to start my own party. And I was going to call it the Renaissance Party, because of course Renaissance means rebirth, and I was going to stand for the rebirth of logical thinking. And that was going to be my mantra. But I was down at San Diego State and was surfing and traveling to Mexico and kind of got sidetracked. But I always had the love of wanting to make a difference. And I was so blessed to be successful and to be able to retire. When my kids turned 2, I figured I was going to switch jobs, and I just figured I don't have to work, so I'm going to raise my kids, and I've got the time and energy, and I really think, and the love of Sierra Madre, that's what I think I can bring to this is just complete dedication, logical thinking, rational thought, the ability to listen to all sides and then make the best decisions for the city.
Thank you.
I'm not a politician. I'm not accepting campaign donations. I'm just thought I'd throw my hat in the ring and because I think I could do a great job.
Hi, Kurt. Gary Hood here.
Hi, Gary. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to be seen.
I didn't recognize you without the mask.
Yeah. Yeah, no bank robbers here. At the last city council meeting, we were, of course, discussing the library.
Right.
And the council brought up the fact that they're going to have to raise more money to support the fire, police, and library. So as someone who's on a fixed income, I asked all the candidates, I'm curious if you have any ideas for raising revenue to support our critical city services without raising taxes. Tough question.
Oh, that is a tough question. Well, I know most of the city's income comes from property taxes, right? So obviously the development at the monastery, would help there if moving forward. So yeah, maybe that's one thing the city should factor in is what the income, how is the city going to make the most money off of that project? Let's see. That's obviously because property values and property taxes here in town, are already high. Sierra Madre, the values are almost out of skew but everybody wants to live here. But as we develop and homes are sold and they're allowed to be remodeled, then those values are going to go up. And when they're sold, then they're going to be reassessed. And then obviously the property values on those developed homes, the property taxes will go up. So that should increase. I think we just also have to really understand what we want, because I think that with everything we see going on in the world, I really think it's important that we keep for the police department, because that way it can be managed and has that a closer knit feel to the community. We obviously want to keep the fire department. That would be, definitely a goal, but I would say that having our own police would be of a higher priority than fire department. And just, we're going to have to just try to balance the budget and do the best we can. And obviously raising more taxes, we've already done that once.
Once a year.
That's been going on quite a bit. So, I think we just need to keep, as things turn over and values, the property gets assessed higher, then our income will increase as a city.
Kurt, have you had any experience with the city commissions?
No, I have been busy. I follow. I go online. I watch watch the city council meetings. But my kids have now reached an age where I'm not spending quite as much time. I have to. And quite frankly, just to be fully honest, I ended up going through a divorce earlier this year, which now has created more time for me to get involved in this stuff. So I have an 89-year-old father who I manage all his affairs. I also run a charitable foundation that I support, actually, and have been supporting several of the local nonprofits here in town with the Richter Family Foundation. And so my ability to work on the commissions, I have not done it up until this point that much, but I plan on doing more of that in the future.
There's a question that has been submitted by one of the attendees. Have you heard that it continues to be an issue that people who are not white do not always feel comfortable in Sierra Madre? What do you see the role of the City Council in promoting racial diversity and racial acceptance in Sierra Madre?
Well, that's generally my experiences here in town have not seen that. There's been a couple of instances, a guy that I talk to all the time who walks his dog. I know he was harassed one time. And I know there was a thing, on Facebook where somebody was out walking their kids. I think that those are not issues that are generally a big problem here. There's always people that are, nervous and don't understand or are uneducated. And I think we just need to be very, intolerant of that type of attitude and do things to just, overall, as far as, campaigns or different things, just try to make sure that it's a comfortable environment here. Because realistically, this town is not as diverse as it really should or could be. And I don't know why that. I don't think it's for any reason except for maybe that property values are, and there's not a lot of turnover of property here in town. I recently, this year, I told you what I went through, and I needed to buy a place close to my kids. And as I looked at the market, it was very difficult. So finding good properties for sale is a real problem here in town.
Okay, monastery question from Matt.
Kurt, the monastery project is going to require a zoning change from institutional use to residential use. That issue will come before the city council to vote on. and there's no legal obligation for the city council to approve that zoning change. I just wanted to ask you, what aspects of the proposed project will you be scrutinizing in order to decide whether or not to grant that zoning change?
Well, one of the areas that we've just touched on here in this conversation is, how is the city best going to benefit? Yep, it's a close call between the institutional use versus the residential use. They're going to do one or the other from what I understand. So, number one, which one would benefit the city? There's all different ways to benefit the city as far as image, as far as property values, and as far as tax income. And so I think the city needs to just decide what's best for the city when all the facts are in. I'm not married to either side. I think it's a call that we need to, have all the facts in front of us before we make a decision. Traffic, water, just overall how it affects everything. Oh, I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, thanks, Kurt. Thank you.
Pat?
Yes.
Kurt, what is your view of reducing the number of members on the planning commissions specifically, or any of the commissions from to five members?
It's the more people you have, the more difficult it is to get, consensus. And I'm not sure that, has there always been seven people available or asking, wanting to get on the commission? I think that 5 is a reasonable number. 7 would be fine too. But I guess if you had to ask me, Kurt, what do you want, 5 or 7? I would think if you have 5 good people on there that they could do the job necessary.
Thank you.
We're reaching the end of our time. Kurt, is there anything you'd like to say as a final message?
Well, I just want to say I appreciate the work that your group does, and any group that puts the interest of Sierra Madre first. And I think it's funny because you go on Facebook and you see a wildly divergent opinions on a lot of stuff, and I think that's why I think reasonableness and rationality, and I think your organization is just looking out for the city in general and the overall interest, so that things don't get done wrong. And so I just want to say thank you for what you do, and I would look forward to more involvement with your group, either whether I'm elected or not.
Thank you.
Well, Kurt, thank you very much for agreeing to appear today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And thank you very much for agreeing as a citizen to put yourself up for a political campaign. And we wish every single candidate that appeared before us success in their campaign, and we wish that to you. So once again, very many thanks. So this brings us to the end of our forum for candidates. I would like to thank the attendees who managed to stay through the 4 hours of this marathon session for sticking with us. It is our intention, once we figure out the technology, to post this which has been recorded onto our website, so that if you've missed a particular section, you'll be able to get back. So thank you to my fellow members of the steering committee, and everybody should go out and have a really big lunch. So thank you and goodbye. And
well, I've got baseball practice now, and then the forum this afternoon. So,
We'll see you there.
And I can afford to skip lunch anyway.
Goodbye.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
David, are you still here, people?
I'm here.
Well,
We
we
wanna
still have- yeah, we still have 15 people.